Pretty interesting to note. Flash is the Terran player, so we're gonna see how Jaedong fits in here. I'm actually curious to see why didn't they pick Zerg instead of Terran, and I'm also curious to see why Snoot Lilbo picked Zerg rather than Protoss.
Yeah, because we did see them play Protoss last time in a PvP, and maybe that's because they weren't willing to play another race against Protoss, because they're understanding right now the possible weaknesses that other races have when it comes to Archon mode.
Oh, that's so interesting. You noticed that. I actually completely forgot that they played Protoss yesterday. That is actually quite a big change. Maybe Flash Gen we're going to be preparing for a Protoss match, and instead here out they come throwing a snowball, sorry, a curveball at them with Zerg.
You see, I don't know what the picking criteria is for this, because sometimes you have to say, like, this is my predetermined matchup. So if I'm going to come out as Terran against a Terran player, I'm going to play Zerg every time. And if I'm coming out against Protoss, I'm going to play Protoss every time. And that's generally the format that you have to go with if you're going to be a race picker in a tournament.
They could have done that. Yeah. I'm just thinking here why they pick into a mirror match. Maybe they just didn't like the PVT matchup, and so they decided to say we're gonna play Zerg in that. Although I guess, hey, I'm not complaining, man. ZVT is the best matchup.
And so here we have, because it's Terran, who do you think's on the macro stage right now? Flash, obviously one of those players that loves just focusing on macro and expanding early on in this game. Is this something where he can finally just absolutely focus on the perfect macro game ever, while Jaedong just goes crazy with like these super hyper reapers?
Honestly, a team of Jade on Flash, when you think about it, is a really strong team in a Archon mode style format because Flash, as like you said, one of the best macro players. I would even argue he's the greatest macro player of all time in StarCraft. And Jaedong is known for his insane micro skills. Flash is great at micro, but he's not as known for it compared to someone like Jaedong. So,
Yeah,
exactly what you're saying is completely right. You have Jaedong
and
on the
and Flash
micro.
is actually really he's known to have not the highest APM either among pro players.
Exactly. So he using the micro for Jaedong instead, and Jaedong is at least 400 APM. So he's probably going to be doing the microing as you said.
Yeah, so as long as they communicate well, this could be like a super scary matchup to play against. And only to argue against your greatest macro player ever, I would throw Best out there.
Yeah, I have to say, Best was the quote unquote flash killer for a period of time when people were to say that because he was able to compete with his macro play. Um, but
But
yeah, we see.
consistency wise, definitely Flash. On his best day, Best was definitely up there as one of the top macro players.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember me crying myself to sleep every time Best would beat Flash, and people started spamming how Best is the counter to Flash.
Right. So if you think about like Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty, could you honestly think who like someone who is just the standard best macro player? I think other than maybe someone like Bomber being an exceptional macro player, it's really hard to just kind of pick a name out of a hat. But I think Legacy of the Void is actually going to bring that to the forefront because of how fast paced the economy game is.
Yeah, I have to agree, and that's why as we said yesterday, how this might be tailored to Flash's style of game, where you expand crazily, and as we can see with his build right now, he is getting that third really really early command center, even earlier than the Zerg, and it's already turned into an orbital command center. So, like you said, we don't know. I don't know yet, but I hope that Flash is able to, kind of turn it. Oh, Nidus Canal is going up.
And now he's got the Liberator right around the Nidus Canal too. So you actually got to see two different functions from the Liberator. First at Valkyrie mode, and now it is ready to zone out the units here. And I don't know, is this a good choice for Snoot and Lilbo?
Flash is actually really well prepared for it. I mean, like if you think about it from last time, as we saw, I didn't see it because my stream decided to be really stupid, but you saw it. Flash did apparently get crushed by a really interesting Nidus Worm attack, and so this time I think he was ready for it, and that's why he was able to clean it up pretty easily.
Yeah, probably a result of the fact that this is a game where he is focusing perfectly on macro, and he's got the right selection of units out. And so maybe Jaedong, who actually, since he's not on KT roster, has had more time to practice Legacy of the Void. Since, Pro League lasted so long, there wasn't that opportunity to be a beta. So Jaedong's probably calling the shots on units being produced because he has a better idea of how to counter Zerg and ZVT.
Absolutely, and I think that's a great point that you mentioned that because one of the key unfortunate things about Flash is that he didn't really have a great understanding of StarCraft 2 unit compositions and everything. So he would always tend to pick wrong unit comps. And one of the things like Jadon I think was really good at is he's picking right unit comps. And as we see here, another Nidus Swarm being planted in the main base.
Right, and while this Liberator attack is coming at that mineral line, it's really awesome to see that the Ravagers aren't getting a lot of damage done because the micro is focused to avoid the Ravager shots coming down. And
Yeah,
sometimes it's really hard to avoid just that rain of fire that the Ravagers bring.
absolutely. And meanwhile, we see that Flash did, or Jadon, one of the two, did manage to snipe down that Nidus Swarm, so there won't be any more reinforcements into here. And wow, those Ravagers picked off two of the Liberators with those corrosive bile shots.
Yeah,
But the attack was
that's
cleaned
the
up.
crippling moment of the Liberator is that they cannot avoid those shots once they're in their focused mode. You can't micro them until you put them back into that Valkyrie type mode.
Yeah, and as we see from the units lost tab, they lost 26 SCVs from that Nidus Swarm attack, and they're already down by 15 workers. So I wanted to bring this up. Do you think that the Nidus Swarms at the moment are a little overpowered because they can't be attacked while they're spawning?
Right now it's still a little too early to say, but I definitely think that the options for a Zerg player are really open and broad, especially since they can research the Overlord drop super early, like we saw that Ling attack that killed off Flash. So there's two different options that a Terran player really has to worry about, and it's going to take them time to develop the proper defenses and the proper build orders early on.
To deal with the Nidus Swarms. Yeah, absolutely, I agree with you on
Exactly.
that. And obviously, cheeky things and really quick and simple to understand things like a Nidus Swarm just popping up in an enemy base, like I said yesterday, is going to tend to be more stronger against more like conventional builds that you would think would pop up because they're easier to play, right? People don't have enough practice against them yet, and so that's why they're able
Right.
to be a lot easier to be pulled off.
And what's really cool about this moment in StarCraft, and I don't know if you got around to reading the Yellow and Boxer interview that was on Team Liquid, and but the one that came up today, basically Boxer was saying that when you have a limited amount of replays to view from, you actually start to get more creative because you have to make your own mind up instead of following a meta build and just tweaking it for your own personality. And so what we're seeing in Legacy of the Void is everybody just has to get creative and just get those scrappy wins, so that way they can get themselves ahead in the early game or early stages of the Legacy of the Void.
Yeah, I mean, you only have so many few replays to pick from, so you kind of have to create your own meta at the moment. And again, this Nidus Swarm attack probably going to do a decent amount of damage here. Again, Flash sniping off that Nidus Swarm, and he's probably going to pick up the rest of the reinforcing units.
That was a great reaction this time by the Terran Force here. And it just makes you question, though, why they haven't taken care of that Overlord that repeatedly allows them to create the Nidus. Because you absolutely have to have vision to get the Nidus canal inside the base.
Yeah, and that's, again, another key feature. I think also a stubbornness, maybe a Flash, I would say, because he is known for not just dealing with these cheeses, permanently. He just kind of cleans it up a little bit, and then it's just like, well, all right, time to go back to doing whatever I was doing, and then he gets re-cheesed and loses the game a lot of the time.
Yeah, and it's like when you're a Terran player getting harassed by a Banshee. Why not build a Raven and a Viking? At some point, just having a Raven and a Viking will eliminate all Banshee harass in the early game. And at this point, why not build one Viking to just scoot around and kill off the nearby overlords so you don't have to worry about these Nidus canals anymore?
Yeah, and I think it was Polt, I think, was the big innovator of the one Viking kill off all the enemy overlords that are just scouting around the map. And, it was really effective. You deny scouting from the overlords. You deny also supply because now your opponents have to keep remaking those overlords that are being killed off. And so it was really smart by them, by Polt, to kind of invent this. And I think that's what Flash and Jadon should do right now. They should just build, like, a Viking and a Raven to just, kind of scout around the map.
Oh, and this looks like a pretty big drop here coming inside of the main base. There's not a lot of mineral patches here, so the only kill that they could probably get if they survive this army would be taking down the Hive. If they do have Hive tech, I believe they're still sitting on Lair.
Yeah, and it's key to note that in a traditional MM build, you usually don't go for that many Marauders, but because of these heavy Roach Ravager builds, we're going to see the Marauders do a great amount of work against those Roaches. We saw in that drop, they actually took about a lot of Roaches and didn't lose that many Marine Marauders. So, I think right now the Terran has a bit more of a economical, or I should say cost-efficient army composition against Roach Ravager, but because they suffer that economic damage early on, their army is not as strong in terms of numbers compared to the Zerg.
Yeah, and funny enough, we can actually make a pretty good comparison to the latest Advanced Starling game between Sea and Hero, where it was bio for the entire game, which is actually not quite as gas heavy. And then you actually have a ton of gas that you could start putting into your capital ships like battle cruisers and real high-tech air units, and do that transition where all of a sudden, Zerg, who may have been using their gas efficiently in the entire game, just has a huge number of minerals and can only build Zerglings or cheaper units and cannot deal with stuff like battle cruisers in the late game.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was, I think, one of the strongest moments of Terran in the TVZ matchup right now, is that because they can just go for that SK Telecom style Terran, just only building Marine Medic and Science Vessels, they begin starting to bank up a high amount of gas because, they're only producing Science Vessels maybe from 1 or 2 starports while taking gas the gas refineries at every single base they take, and so they're able to build up that gas count, and either, like you said, they put it into those battle cruisers, or they go into that 3-base mech switch that's so popular now.
Right. Okay, so more dropships are coming out here, and this is what we thought was going to be the biggest threat as a Terran player, is that you can constantly do these dropships on multiple parts of the map. And you know what? Not one person has to control these medevacs. You can actually have both players at this point because the macro is kind of done at this point in the game. All you need to do is really hotkey up the buildings to make sure that you're constantly producing units. But each player is probably focusing on individual drops.
Yeah, and that's key to know. And it's funny we say that as this drop gets dropped and gets immediately killed by the Zerg forces, but that is key to know that, like with Terrans with these medevacs so pesky, at the late game when both players are going to be maxed, it's going to be really important. And here we're going to be see a huge engagement here.
Wow, that was a lot of Ravager shots.
Decent micro though by Flash. He's able to get kind of before the Ravager shots, and he's able to kind of pick off some of those Roaches as they were retreating. But meanwhile, here comes the counter engage by the Zerg.
And what are you supposed to do as a Zerg player? You've got a ton of Roaches and Ravagers, but when you transition to something else, this unit composition is not terrible against the Bioforces, but the Bioforces are going to get better and better upgrades, and I think that the upgrades scale better with the Bio against the Roaches and Ravagers.
This is one of the problems I just didn't like about Zerg. I think Zerg has one of the weakest mid games out of all 3 races, because if they were to choose that Roach tech path, you don't really have an idea of where to go next. By the way, another Nidus Worm coming out inside the main again. Flash and Janon are on top of this, so we're going to see how much damage that it's going to be done by Snoot Lilbo. Meanwhile, Flash and Janon have been really pesky with this Marine Medic force, and they're continuously, instant snipe on that worm.
Oh yeah, that was perfect on that Nidus Canal.
But here we go, Flash and Janon coming in with this group of forces that I think they're going to be able to clean up these Roaches and again deny this 5th base from the Zerg. But actually, no, they're not able to. Meanwhile, they're coming across a choke point. I don't think this is a great engagement by the Terran. Look at that splash damage done by that corrosive Bioshot.
Yeah, the Zerg player right now is sitting in such a really good position at their natural base. It's really hard for the Terran player because, as you can see, there's constantly that tight choke point that they have to go across in order to make any engagement. So they really do have to rely on getting inside of dropships and moving to a location instead of walking on the ground. A straight ground engagement has been proven impossible right now for Jaedong and Flash.
Yeah, and that's one of the key features of this map. You see that tiny little bridge. It reminds me of a scrap station, if you still remember that from Wings of Liberty.
Oh, yes.
It kind of reminds me of that. And unfortunately, if they try to push across that ramp, man, Ravager shots are just going to rain all over that army if they try to push. And they will go into a fight with probably half their army already in the red.
Right, and you can see that there's one player constantly in attention with that main army. And the Ravager shots are always just crisp and on time.
Yeah, I think definitely that's Lilbo on it, because Snooze probably has better Zerg macro at this point. But it is key to note that someone is controlling that. There's always watching that little bridge, and every time he sees that they're trying to push across, man, he just jumps right on it and throws out all those Ravager shots.
Yeah, let's get back to the point that we were talking about where you said that there's kind of a weak mid game, and I think that problem was trying to be solved with lurkers. But lurkers are only good at zoning units that are on the ground. with the massive amount of medevacs that we're seeing in Archon mode, it's hard to control the ground when there's constant dropping.
Hold that thought right now. We're going to see a big engagement, actually. So many Ravager shots and
Wow,
great
there's
micro
so
by the
many with the
Terran.
Ravagers.
There are a lot of Ravagers, but there's great micro by the Terran. I think Terran's going to win this engagement. You see them how they sidestepped all those Ravager shots in the middle of the army, and then they went around, and they're going to be able to flank this Ravager army, and they're actually winning this engagement.
That stutter micro was just beautiful by the Terran forces. You can see that Jaedong and Flash are just playing really well with their army. They had a great spread of their units to face on these Ravagers. And the Ravagers just don't have that DPS to deal with the healing that the medevacs are bringing down on the bioforces.
And yeah, that's one of the problems. Like, if again, going back to Brood War, that mid game, why do Zergs not go for Higers? It's because medics just counter Higers, like they destroy them, and so that's why you can't really go for Higers, and that's why you have to go for Lurkers instead as a Zerg player in the mid game for a TVZ.
Yeah, and you can see, though, that the medevacs that do exist are really drained on energy right now. So the forces really can't engage anymore. I think Jaedong and Flash need to just step off the gas pedal right now, take another base, and just hang in here. But that's not going to happen. There's more Ravagers that have just come out. The re-macro by Snoot and Lilbo is just amazing right now.
It is actually fantastic, but as you can see, Jaedong Flash, probably Flash on that macro is just, they're actually like 20 supply up now from this. Even though they're losing these fights, the macro back at home is keeping them in this game right now.
Wow, this game looks like a Chinese New Year, just fireworks going off all over the map.
It reminds me of, I don't know if you play League, but it reminds me of the Kog'Maw Firecracker skin when he shoots his ultimate up in the air. But again, Flash and Jaedong are continuously trying to push back this Zerg force. I'm not sure if they're overextending a little bit, but there are a lot of Ravagers in the red, and I think they probably took notice of that and said, we can take an engagement. Our micro is better than your micro, and we're going to snipe all those low health Ravagers really quickly.
Oh, absolutely. They have overextended at this point because they're, like I mentioned earlier, the medevacs have no energy. They need to start using zone control units like the tanks and the Liberator to kind of hold back the Zerg forces right now while they can just take that breath, let the medevacs get back up to that full energy marker where they can push in and re-macro their bioforces. But instead, they're continuing to dive in here. The Ravagers are really too strong. Their position in the middle of the map is really good for them, and Snoot and Lilbo are just feeling pretty comfortable right now.
I want to say this. I think one of the biggest problems with Terran is that they overextend and they begin to run out dry of minerals. If you notice, their third base is basically run dry. They're only mining off essentially 2 bases. Oh, a Nidus Swarm is also in that base now.
Oh,
Ravagers,
this is going to be scary here.
It is going to be scary. There's actually a lot of supply depots there too, so they might get supply blocked. But finally, here comes the retreat, and the Ravagers are going to be really smart and go right back into the Nidus Swarm to not lose any of the forces. But like I said before, Flash has a tendency to kind of stick on 2 bases. A lot of back-end Brood War, where in the TVZ he just stick on 2 bases and be really stubborn with it. In this game, you might see that. I'm really surprised they haven't expanded to that 6.
But here's the ultimate problem playing Terran and Archon mode is that since these mineral patches run dry quickly, you have to manage your mules. And imagine if one player's macroing and they're just firing off a GG. Okay, so it looks like the Terran won. But what I was getting at is you have to watch how heavy you're muling your economy because you're going to run out of the minerals that much quicker. And you really don't need that bank as fast. You got to make it last as long as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's a big problem with Terrans, is that when they overmule, right? They, cool, great, all this money shooting in, bam, bam, bam. But all of a sudden, you trade armies and you have no money left because you muled out your entire base.
Yeah, and if you're out of minerals and your SCVs are sitting around, then they're just jobless, and you don't want jobless SCVs. They look sad.
But I want to talk about the game a little bit, and we felt like that Flash Jaedong wasn't really doing that well. I wanted to point out to you that there was always this time after that big engagement, right, where you saw that really great stutter step micro, and where I felt that Flash Jaedong won that engagement. Yeah, you would see their supply begin to creep more and more away from Snoot Lilbo. At first, right after the fight, they're maybe 10, 20 supply up. After continuously trading armies over and over again, Snoot Lilbo were denied that 4th and 5th expansion so many times that they began to run dry on minerals, and they also had less workers than Flash Jaedong. So, while they continued to trade armies, and I felt that Zerg army was actually being a little more cost efficient. Unfortunately for them, morphing Ravagers is so expensive. So while they have
and it's not just expensive, it's like morphing a lurker. You have to get an egg. You have to wait for that extra time. So it's not only do you have to wait for roaches, but then you have to wait for roaches to become Ravagers. Right. So you have time and money to re-macro those.
Exactly, and I felt like that's where Flash is so good on. He's great at knowing to those re-macro timings and everything, and he just got right in the face of Zerg. He says, I know you're making more Ravagers, I know your economy is complete garbage right now because you're continuously making these really expensive units, and I'm going to punish you with my primarily cheap and cost-efficient Marine Marauder force, and that's why he was able to whittle them down little by little, and the supply lead just kept growing to 30, 40, and at the very end of the game, they're up by 70 supply.
Right. And, so thinking about Flash's games yesterday, and he watched him. Oh, he lost his 2 games yesterday pretty terribly. And then today, watching this Archon mode, Flash and Jaedong together were just like a 5-star player versus maybe a 2-star player of yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Flash has, I think, really shown up here. I don't know if it's the combined knowledge with Jaedong, or is that just Lilbo and Snoot just don't have as much knowledge with the Zerg race as before, but definitely looking a lot better. He did lose quite a few workers in the early game to that Nidus Worm, and I felt like they did lose a bit of the advantage there, but they played smart. They knew their timings and everything. I mean, Flash and Jadon probably two of the biggest veterans of all time in StarCraft, and they just knew everything and how to play it out, and that's why I think they won that game.
So if we go back to the really early portions of this game, there was a lot of Nidus canals that came up inside of the main base. And it's cute play that's coming from Lilbo and Snoot, but did it end up working against them if they get their units through and they lose your units immediately? And that's just kind of like a round of wasted units because they're not doing any economy damage and they're just trading army. And is that efficient trading for a Zerg player to lose those types of units?
I think in the very first attack, when we saw that very first attack, I think even the first and second attack, when Flash Jalen pulled all those SCVs from the main to deal with the Nidus Worm, right? They lost a lot of SCVs from those. And I think after the second time they did Nidus Worm, it's like, okay, we should stop now. We did our damage. We did our economic damage. They are up by 15 workers at that point, right? Just expand behind it, play safe, macro up. When you're maxed, go ahead and trade armies and re-macro because you have the better economy. Instead, they try to keep forcing the issue, and it just didn't work out for them. They kept forcing it, and that's not what we're really supposed to do. If you get something, you should use it, and then build upon it. Instead, they kind of just threw away their lead by continuously making those Nidus Worms to take a while, and then throwing away units with sending them to their death.
Yeah, they did that, and on top of that, what they also did is that every investment into a Nidus Worm cost money. People kind of forget because maybe the Nidus Canal, if you're a Brood War person, the Nidus Canal is free when you're building one and you're trying to connect it to another base. But with a Nidus Worm, every time it gets killed off, you have to pay a fee to build a new Nidus Worm somewhere. And so even though it's invulnerable when it's being constructed, it was almost too weak when it could be attacked while it was being built because you're pretty much guaranteeing yourself to lose a number of minerals and gas. So I think that's where actually it becoming invulnerable is really good because the Zerg risked too much in their economy previously in Heart of the Swarm. But now they also have to be careful not to overdo it on their Nidus Swarms and Legacy of the Void.
I agree completely. I'm looking at the information right now. Nidus Worm costs 100, 100. That's a lot of minerals and gas. And I think they threw down maybe 5, 6, 7 of those. And if you think about it, 500 minerals gone. Plus, we talk about all the economic damage that's being done on the Terrans, how many SCVs they lose. But at the same time, you have to understand, they're also sacrificing units to kill those SCVs off. And so not only do they waste 100, 100 every time they make a Nidus Worm, they're also still losing those units at the same time. So sure, you kill off 26 SCVs, but what about your army? Your army.
Yeah, and what's nuts is that Snoot and Lilbo were doing that off 2 bases. They were slow to take a third, but they had wasted, let's say there were 3 Nidus Worms by the time they took a third. So they wasted 300 minerals and 300 gas. They got SCV kills, but that's still just a huge investment. And so I think that maybe just people are always forgetting that Nidus Worms aren't free.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is one of the biggest reasons why they overestimate and overstep their boundaries. They just kept making Nidus Worms. Oh, no big deal, Nidus Worm, Nidus Worm. We're going to keep shutting them down. It takes a lot of money to keep those Nidus Worms going and going and going. And, by the end of it, right? After the second time, the third one wasn't successful. The fourth one wasn't successful. The fifth one wasn't successful. You're losing those for free. If you remember to the fifth one, the one at the bottom of the main base, that one got sniped instantaneously. No units even came out. You just lost a free 100, 100 minerals and gas. Sure, at that point in the game, maybe that doesn't mean as much, but it adds up over time, and suddenly you find yourself in the whole 300 minerals and 300 gas.
Yeah, and consider this to get even deeper with this thought. So, 300 minerals, 300 gas wasted on those early Nidus worms. That's where you actually could have invested into two upgrades from your evolution chamber instead of going for those attacks. Because if those attacks failed, then oh wow, you're really out of luck. But if you decide to not go for those attacks and strengthen your army, you can get armor and you can get your I guess you'd want range because
Range
you're going
upgrade,
for
yeah.
Ravagers. So you could have 1-1 super early. By the time you take your third, those are available to you. And that means that you're that much stronger.
Yeah, I think in the game they only had one Evo chamber doing upgrades. Think about that. That an Evo chamber isn't expensive, right? You just throw away 75 minerals to get a second Evo chamber. But because they didn't have that minerals and they didn't have that gas for the upgrades, they're not able to make a second evolution chamber because they wouldn't be upgrading anything because they already spent all of that minerals and gas wasted on Nidus worms and throwing units away like that.
Yeah.
And I think upgrades are so important in the TVZ matchup as well. Back in Heart of Swarm and Wings of Liberty, the Terran upgrades were huge timing pushes for them. And so, I mean, I honestly don't think it's much different in Legacy of the Void. I still think TVZ upgrades are so crucial. And because Zerg just didn't have those armor upgrades to deal with, the high DPS of Marines, they're just not able to keep up with the army. And that's why Marines become super cost efficient in late game.
Now, Flash, I got to say that I'm getting pretty excited about all this talk. There's so many different options to consider with Legacy of the Void. And to quote from what Boxer said again, he thought like it was just a garage of StarCraft units and or a mall of StarCraft units to be accurate, and that you could pretty much pick from anything you want to basically build up your build orders. And I think that's really cool. There's just so many options, and some people thought maybe there's too many. I think maybe Blizzard finally hit the sweet spot for this expansion.
I have to agree with you. And we're jumping into game number 2 here between Jaedong Flash and Snoot Lillibow. We're going to have the blue Terran spawning down at the 7 o'clock position, being Jaedong Flash, and the red Zerg is going to be played by Snoot Lillibow, spawning up at the 1 o'clock position, and I think this map is Dust Towers.
Yes, and we're going to be continuing this TVZ matchup.
Yeah, very exciting, I say. I'm really looking forward to how Snoot Lillibow come back from this. Nidus Worms have shown their efficiency, I wouldn't say efficiency, but their power when players are not aware of them. Like we said, again, those first 2 Nidus Worms were very, very good, I feel like. But we're going to see how they adapt to it. Maybe Flash Jaedong are going to be trying to predict the Nidus Worm this time and keep the units in their base rather than pushing out.
Yeah, relatively fast second hatchery. And I'm wondering if they're going to take a fast third too. I would totally recommend it. I think it would help them out to focus on the economy early on instead of going for the QT Nidus Canal attacks off 2 base.
I agree with you completely. I mean, Flash Jaedong went for a CC first. I mean, as is Flash style. But unfortunately, no, they didn't go for 3 hatch before pool. Instead, they just kind of did a really economic pool or hatch pool build where they went for the hatch first and then kept building drones until they felt comfortable dropping down that pool.
Yeah, this is going to be probably the safest opening that a Zerg player can go for. And I really think, though, that they need to remind themselves to get a little bit greedy here because with that faster third, they did really well in the early to mid game with the Ravager play. And as long as they can just like sustain that for a really long time, I feel like they can wear down Jaedong and Flash before the late game happens.
Yeah, I agree completely with you. I mean, I honestly think that third base was critical. When as you said before, they delayed that third base over and over again because they kept doing those Nidus Worms. If they took that third earlier, after the Nidus Worms were finally finished off, I think they really could have pushed an advantage and probably won that game.
Yeah, that's a significant amount of gas that was delayed. That they really needed to help fuel that battle.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to see Flash Jaedong here not opting to open up Reaper this time. Instead, just going for 1 Marine to deal with scouting overlords and then go into the factory play with the reactor.
Yeah, and you see that they're only mining from 1 gas inside of the main base. So it would lead you to believe that it's going to be a bio-heavy type build.
I think they're mining off. Oh wow! Okay, they pulled off most of the SCVs on one of the gases, so you're right there. Zerg also is probably gonna opt for a quick third, and as we see the drone here coming out, because they did stop mining that gas just to get speed upgrade on those Zerglings.
Yeah, and generally you're going to see a Terran player like they're only mining enough gas to either get add-ons, the next tech building, or a single upgrade when they're going to be going for barracks play.
I think that is actually one of the awesome things about StarCraft 2 compared to StarCraft Brood War, because in StarCraft Brood War you didn't really see workers being pulled off of gas that much. Sure, you would see like a 9 pull speed opening from Zerg, you'd be pulling off workers after 100 gas, but you didn't really see that anywhere else. In StarCraft 2, there's so many different timings of when you want to pull one worker or two workers, even all workers off gas. And it's so interesting to me that players have made such efficient build paths, and they're like, I know exactly at this timing, I'm going to pull all my workers off gas. I'm going to pull exactly one worker off gas.
Right. Yeah, and that's absolutely necessary to kind of map that out and find the best route possible. So the third is up for, or just about to be finished up for Snoot and Lobo. And meanwhile, there is going to be a fast third for Jaedong and Flash. And wow, this is going to be just a crazy heavy macro game.
What happened? I got on black screened.
It's okay. I got black screen too. You can actually see that the mouse in the game was still there. And
Chinese
now,
production.
Yep. So it's still looking all right here.
Yep, we got our first few Hellions out on the map, going to try to do a little bit of harassment, but there are Queens at the front, so they will be shut down pretty easily. Meanwhile, once again, that first initial Liberator being produced from a tech lab. Are you sure the Liberators aren't from reactors?
They may have moved Liberators to tech labs, because it used to be under reactors first.
Oh, interesting. They might have done that because maybe they felt like the Liberators were too powerful. I think honestly it would make more sense for Liberator to be made on tech path. They're like Valkyries, right? I remember Valkyries required that control tower plus armory to be created.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on the chat for anybody who's been keeping up with the changelogs here. You know what I would really like to see with all the Hellions kind of at the front here is the Blue Flame Hellion, like Slayer's style, like Slayer's Boxer and Slayer's MMA, when they used to do all their like sort of awesome Hellion run-bys and attacks. Back in like the early MLGs of like 2011, they were super strong. And in fact, Blizzard had to react to like the Slayer strategies by nerfing the Hellions.
Yeah, I remember those days too. Blue Flame Hellion was just super strong, and oh man, these Ravager shots just barely missing the Liberator. And we're gonna see this Liberator try to do some harassment, but taking half health from that Queen.
Yeah, that Liberator's got to come back. There's no way it's gonna get any more damage.
And I think that's one of the interesting things about a TVZ. If Zerg isn't prepared for Liberator, they might instantaneously lose the game off of just being denied so much mining time. But as we know, these are the top Zerg players, or at least Snoot is one of the top Zergs, so he's gonna know to put that Queen in that strategic location and build those Ravagers early on to fire off those corrosive bio shots.
Right. We're going to see possibly this Overlord going down, and I know I mentioned it just briefly in our last cast, but the creep will spread a lot faster for Zerg players. It's supposed to spread faster and reseed faster.
Right, and that's actually, I think, a big reason. I would say a slight buff for Zerg personally. I mean, if we remember looking at last game, I didn't point this out, but the creep spread was sick by Zerg. I mean, they were already spewing all the way up to like the Terran 4th and 3rd. I mean, it was really great to see that nice creep spread.
Right, and you've got to be constant with those, with basically putting down the creep tumors. And the Queens can do that because they only need to be back to inject, but they can stack inject. So if you have multiple Queens, you can go over to a hatchery, stack multiple injects so that way they're there, and you don't have to constantly be like going to each hatchery at exactly the perfect time and have perfect inject macro.
That's interesting. I didn't actually know that yet.
It's the same way with like the Chrono Boost. They basically attempted to nerf it in a way that casual players can have a better time, while it still is actually super important to time out for pro players.
That's really interesting to note. And here we go. Here comes the Liberator, not doing anything again. Those Ravagers pushing back, but a great drop here from the Terran, delaying mining here at this natural expansion. But the Lings are going to be able to pretty much deny this, but they're also attacking the 4th base at the same time.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that there was enough Lings there to clean that up. I thought maybe there was just a nice, good enough positioning there for the Marines to kill off most of those Zerglings, but it seemed like their damage was going to be too strong.
Oh, a lot of Banelings coming in here.
Wow, that is a ton of Banelings, and quite a surprise for Jaedong and Flash. You did not expect those units to come out.
Yeah, but I think that was a great pre-spread from them. They did make a lot of Banelings kind of waste their attacks on them. Meanwhile, the drop here at the natural, still doing a pesky amount of damage. Able to kill off a decent amount of Lings here. But finally, I think the Lings will be able to clean this up. All the Marines are in low health, and the Terran force is going to have to retreat.
I wonder because mech is actually really good for Terran and Legacy of the Void. If we will never see meching Terrans in Archon mode because you're just not utilizing the mobility and the free hands that you have to be able to do the same things that you can in bio, with bio in Archon mode.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why TVZ Arcamo is even more exciting for me because, as I said before in yesterday's stream, TVZ is the most micro-oriented matchup, and I think seeing a really cool Marine Bioforce when it's played perfectly like Marine King did, TVZ is almost unbeatable for Terran.
Imagine having two players splitting Marines.
Yeah, I mean, like, two Marine Kings thinking the same thing is going to be incredible. But
Oh god, yeah, that would just be ridiculous. It'd be like the Automatron 3000.
yeah, I mean, seriously, that stuff is sick and crazy. But going to this game right now, Flash Jadon is doing a great job. I have to say, an incredible job doing denying this fourth base. But we see Corruptors out now, so they're going to be able to try to deny these drop plays from the Medivacs.
Yeah, Corruptors are actually pretty interesting now because they have the new ability where they can just siphon health from buildings, and it does increase the damage over time. So, like, after a certain amount of time, like a Void Ray focus, like the Wings of Liberty Void Rays, if you do it for enough time, it does, like, tons of damage to buildings, and you can actually kill off buildings super quick.
Right. But oh my god, if you look at the supply count right now, Jadon Flash is up by 60 supply.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit out of control, and part of it's because they've denied the fourth so many times. Even though there's creep there, basically Snoot and Lobo need that fourth base so long ago for extra economy here. Although, of course, there's not really an established fourth base for Jaedong and Flash. They need to make sure that they are continuing to expand in this game too.
Yeah, they're just now getting that fourth base up, and Lilbo, Snoot is getting a little bit desperate. They have actually double expanded to kind of inside 1 o'clock position base, as you can see on the minimap. But I wanted to point out something just while you were talking. I watched the split of the Marines, and it was so incredible. I'm pretty sure both players are helping out with the split right now, and this split
Yeah,
is
this
actually
is
pretty
getting
cool.
pretty nuts.
Yeah, the micro from these two players is actually probably really insane. I'm sure both players are helping out in the micro. It's not just Jadon doing it. And again, this base being denied once again.
I think the unit that excites me the most right now is the Ravager. Because the Ravager, which I thought was just created to deal with force fields, is actually just super good at dealing with immobile units. The Widowmine burrowed, and the Ravager did a shot right on top of the burrowed Widowmine, and it killed it off. And I was like, that is the coolest thing ever. They have an efficient way of dealing with those Widowmines now. And I don't think you actually need detection to kill the Widowmine with the Ravager attack.
Yeah, because I can see like the Widowmine actually does have a tiny bit of a dark spot on the map, like kind of like bird units when they move. You can actually see the slight dark spot. But going into this game, man, Jadon Flash, great micro, impeccable micro in these engagements, and they're up 70 supply now.
It's almost like they are like same side magnets, and every time the Zerg army runs at it, it just forces the Marines away.
Yeah, but I mean, like, look how many bangs are just being forced out right now. Like, there's something that the Zerg player needs to do right now, and their supply is just continuously dwindling here. I mean, yeah, sure, the defender advantage will kick in a little bit, but yeah, that's GG. Flash Jadong, they're smiling. They're like, is it over? Like, was it that easy or something like that? Man, their micro is sick that game.
Oh man, it is the most heartwarming feeling to see those guys smile. Like Jaedong, he still looks like a young kid when you see him smile like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've seen that video yet. I'm pretty sure you have, where Jadong is like at a high school gym or something like that, and he starts like rocking it out with the rest of like the
Oh yeah, he does the
God,
dance.
that
with the
was
techno
yeah,
music.
that was hilarious, man. It just reminds me of the good old days, like 5-6 years ago, back when they were our age now, or at least my age now.
Yeah, and the other Hwaisong Oz players were actually like dressed up like girls
Oh yeah, that,
and
God, that was
wearing like
hilarious.
the blonde wigs and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god, that was good times.
Man, I also remember which one was it? I forget which OSL it was or MSL, but it was the one where they played Boys Like Girls as the intro song, and where all the kids look super super young. It was like super cute to watch all of them.
Oh man.
I think
I don't remember that video. The
let
only thing I
me.
remember is I remember Effort dressed up like a girl too in one of his videos.
Oh my god. Or never forget Lita.
Yeah, Lita was one
Oh
of.
my fucking god, Lita is so
Oh
crazy.
man.
Let me try to find
Yeah.
the intro video.
The only thing that we've really seen is CJ Entis in StarCraft 2. They did the Crayon Pop song.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, and that was like really cute. They did the stuff with like their hands. I think they were wearing the gloves and whatnot. And I think that would be really cool in the off season if like a lot of the pro league teams did cutesy stuff like that to just kind of keep the audience entertained. Like, hey, I know we're not playing StarCraft, so here's this cute little music video.
Yeah, it's great. It's actually really good if they were to do that to kind of fill in the off season, the off time between all the tournaments and stuff. I also found the video. I'm just gonna link it to you in the Skype.
Okay.
It's the Great Escape song. I don't know if you still remember it, but this is
Yeah,
what.
with Akon and whatnot.
Yeah, it's just like they're all little kids and everything, and they're just like super happy of the song.
Oh man. You know what though? I think what the off season kind of brings is a little bit of a scare because every off season you see players get traded, you see players that are just exhausted and ready to retire, you see players that have to go to mandatory service, and everybody starts saying, "Oh, the passion's lost, the game is dead." And if the pro league teams can start doing fun stuff like that and just produce more content, it would really help with the morale during the off season. So that way, it kind of like pushes that stuff away.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. You know, like when off season's fun and everything. I think this is what League of Legends does right now is that they have kind of like an all star in between season changes, and it's really entertaining because you just kind of vote for your favorite players, and they just kind of like dick around and stuff. Um, but yeah, I think like all stars like that would be really nice for StarCraft. I remember back in all stars for Pro League back in Brood War, if you remember.
Yep.
Those were the fun times, and people would just do stupid stuff. I remember, oh my god, I think the last All Star in Brood War they did was the where Lita started crying in the booth and brought out a girl to play instead of him. Flash Bisu changed races and like
Every year, Flash and Bisu would switch races, and Flash is actually super godly at Protoss.
yeah, Bisu's Terra needs some work, but it was always funny because no one would know what they're actually playing and stuff, and then like Flash would go carries and be like. Uh, and he would be playing underneath the BC tag and he'd be like, let me show you how to use carriers. And he'd be saying that
Yeah,
to
dude,
BC
that was
and then he would
hilarious.
wreck him with carriers. It'd be so entertaining to watch. I also remember, I think, Firebat Hero when Scouts one game or something like that as Protoss, and it was just super
Yeah.
entertaining.
And then they would bring in Toss Girl, and Toss Girl would play, even though she was just she's just kind of a celebrity of the scene rather than a pro player at that point. And I think that would be really cool if during the All Star games they brought out players like Aphrodite, who's been like a very big figurehead as far as women in esports. So that way you can have like Aphrodite and Flash in Archon mode versus I don't know Classic and someone else, and because that would be a lot of fun too, and bring in the female gamers who really aren't getting a lot of spotlight in StarCraft 2.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think All Stars just really brings all the happiness out of everyone. It's so lighthearted. It's so fun to watch and to participate in them. All the players just have such a friendly mood because it's not super competitive or anything. It's all smiles. Even the losers are gonna be laughing their heads off by some stupid build or cheese that they do. And that's the beauty of All Star. In between seasons when everyone's so stressed out and like about all this stuff, you kind of get a breather with an All Star break, and it's really really entertaining.
Yeah. So we're gonna go into this repeat and replay a billion different or a couple of games like over and over and over again, and then maybe tons of Legacy of the Void trailers. But I promise you guys that they will end up getting to another game.
Yeah, it takes a while. Like, oh my
It
god.
it does. Although the games yesterday were so short, maybe the breaks won't be as long because they don't have to like fill up as much time.
I mean, the games this today were also pretty short. I mean, like another quick 2-0 from the Terrans in this case. I guess game one wasn't that short, but
But
game
but
two.
at least the Archon mode games today were way more entertaining than the PvPs.
Oh yeah, that was just like I don't even know what the hell happened in those. But if you look right now, in the game, it showed like the plus one for Marine and Zerg, getting finished at roughly about the same time. So it shows the importance of upgrades still in this matchup.
Yeah. But thank you guys for listening to us. We are basically Brood War staff members for T Liquid. I cast Advanced Star League that's sponsored by Africa TV. You guys should be familiar with. They are actually running the GSLs from now on. So we just thought it'd be fun to come on and do this cast because it's got our two of our favorite players, Flash and Jaedong, and we're just kind of adding some fun insight.
Yeah, quick shout out to Blind Roy. He has to go to work. Thanks for always being with us, BR. Take care at work.
Thank you, Blind Rar.
But yeah, for you guys who don't know us, my name is Flash for the Win. I'm just your typical average TL staff member, writer for the Brood War section, and I kind of do like freelance stuff for commentaries and stuff. You can go check me out at youtube.com/user/ktflash96. But BisuDagger here is the main man of the show. Bisu, why don't you tell everyone about yourself?
Guys, I actually casted the GOM TV Classic Season 4. And if you don't know who casted Season 3, that is Tasteless. So I'm comparable to Tasteless 2.0. And that means everything in the world. I have had to focus on the proper amount of humor and ridiculousness in my casts. And I think that I'm finally finding that sweet spot. And that's why I'm bringing this to you here is that I really don't have to know anything about a game to commentate about it. And that's exactly what Tasteless has done. And I promise to emulate him as much as possible.
Yeah, and then Tasteless is the dumb guy who just tries to say as much as possible or whatever and bring all the humor. And Artosis is the guy who I think really brings in that good insight to the commentators, and they make a great mesh between those two.
Right. But to be honest, really a lot of my casting career really came from me just wanting to have a lot of fun in my casts, and I never wanted to just be this super technical person. I wanted to just be able to have something that not only I could talk about, but everybody could just enjoy listening to. And I think that's what why a lot of people in Brood War really enjoy listening to my cast. That's why a lot of the Korean leagues will choose me to cast for them. And so I think as long as you understand that for StarCraft 2, sometimes when I'm watching StarCraft 2 threads for the WCS or I'm watching the chat, everybody's super critical because an announcer got one single build order wrong of a best of 5 or a best of 7. And they're like, God, Wolf is the dumbest person ever. I can't believe he said that he was going to build an SCV and instead he built a Marine. And it's just you can't be that critical of casters because they're supposed to be there for not just technical knowledge but entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like people shouldn't be so hard on casters. If the caster is completely wrong 100% of the time, you can kind of talk about how the caster is being a poop head or whatever and being really bad. But otherwise, casters, they're humans as well. They will make mistakes. And I remember really famously one of my games that I casted was Flash versus Zero, and I was I saw a starport with a control tower, and I remember back in the day when Flash was trying to make this science vessel rush work, and I was like, oh, this is his science vessel build, the rush where he goes quick irradiating against mutas, and then no, it was I didn't see an armory in those Valks, and I'm like, oh, I feel like an idiot right now. But we all make mistakes. It's not like every caster is completely perfect in all their analysis and everything.
Right. Okay, so someone pointed out in the thread that I believe it's my voice that is soft. Guys, if you can confirm, this is BisuDagger talking right now. Even though this is my stream, Flash is actually streaming it for me because he doesn't have the lag. So he's going to be the one who has to adjust it. So if he's the louder one, then...
Right, I'm probably the louder one.
That would make sense. Usually the primary person is always louder.
Okay, let me see how I do this. Yeah, I'm just going to raise you up to 90%, and then that should be good to go. Alright, so let's just test real quick. Again, this is Flash for the Win here. I am hosting, as BisuDagger said, because I don't have as much lag on my end, probably from the sick wired connection at college.
That's right. Oh, and someone bringing up Sale. Sale is obviously one of our favorites in the Brood War scene. And what I want to point out is someone else put, casters should be required to be in a certain league or something. But really... I mean, are we saying that all announcers for professional gaming have to have a certain amount of accomplishment to provide enough commentary? I just don't think that's possible. When I can basically say I've watched, 15 to 20 years of StarCraft, I think that's sufficient.
I mean, it just gives you some credibility, you know.
I've seen a few games or two, but maybe my meta knowledge is stuck in like 2006.
Just maybe. Um,
Only when like the first Bisu build was like a super optimal knocked out savior.
Let me see how to do this. They said I'm the quiet one, probably because I'm kind of a little bit far away from my mic. Unfortunately, the blue snowball doesn't have like a setting to make my voice louder, I don't think. So I have to manually adjust that in the
Are you using OBS or XSplit?
OBS, and my mic is already set to 90%. So that is not the problem. Let me see if I can go into hardware and sound. Let's look at, where's my microphone? Shit.
Yeah, make sure your Skype isn't playing with that volume either.
I don't think OBS takes my audio straight from the microphone, not from Skype.
Okay.
Let me see.
Yeah, Skype actually generally, if you don't have the right settings, will silent the co-casters.
Oh, really interesting. Okay, hold
Yeah.
on. Let me.
So me
erase
being
this.
loud is awesome because I'm a naturally loud person. So, and in fact, when I do meeting calls at work, I'm generally like just a notch louder than everybody else on the call.
Let me see. It looks like everything's fine. I raised my volume by 6 decibels from the microphone to 100%. I'm not sure that's the
Sweet.
problem though.
And a little bit of a filler background, guys. I am a software engineer who writes aircraft simulations, and I worked on Apaches, Blackhawks, and Chinooks for several years, and now I work on Boeing aircraft simulators. Woo! So if you have anything related to those questions, you can go ahead and ask those in the thread while we're just kind of, sitting back and wasting some time here.
Alright, I don't know how to fix it. I'm just gonna put my mouth closer to the microphone. Hopefully there's not too much pop in when I speak and stuff.
Put your mouth on the microphone.
And start
Come
licking the
on.
microphone. Last Erger says, yeah, I don't know what you do if you using Skype unless there's physical volume control on your mic. Yeah, there is none. It's not like the original Snowball. That I know Amazing XKCD uses that one, and that one has a kind of a manual volume switch. This one,
Oh, does
unfortunately,
he
doesn't
have that one? I told him to get the blue. Did you get the blue?
I got the blue. Yeah, I know. We both got the blue Snowball, but I got the ice version of it. I think it's a little cheaper, so that's why it doesn't have the volume control option.
Yeah, the blue is actually really good. I can hear your voice pretty crisp. I think for like a cheaper microphone, these are pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, they were like only $50, and if you get them on sale, even 40 or something, they're really great for getting started right off the bat if you don't have enough money to get yourself a really fancy one at least. And me being a poor college student, this is kind of the only one I can afford.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. I got my microphone like right out of college. That was about the time that I got my Snowball.
I don't know if you remember my other before casts and stuff like that, and stuff, because you said you did watch some of my other previous commentaries, but I was using my laptop mic before that, and it was so shitty.
Oh yeah, no. That's one of the casts that I listened to is back when you had your bad microphone, and I was like, man, you would be awesome if you had a better microphone. Your potential is definitely there, and so I'm really glad you were able to gather up some coins and get this microphone.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I mean, like, oh man, when I first got this microphone, I listened to myself in the recordings and stuff like that. It was just like, whoa, that's what my voice actually sounds like, not some crappy staticky piece of shit.
Yeah. So
Year,
interesting to note, there's a knife at the end of the gun. And how often do you think these Marines are using that knife?
Well,
I mean, by the time you're using that, it's oh crap.
Well, oh my god, wouldn't that be such an interesting balance in the game if something got into melee range, the Marine would begin using their knife and do bonus damage?
Like the same way that roaches have a melee and a range attack.
Yeah, that'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, bayonet Marines are OP.
Let me see. People are still complaining at the sound.
I could just get it further away from my
No, no,
microphone.
no. Stay at yours. What I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lower your sound coming off in the OBS. I'm gonna lower the background sound, which is which is coming from your sound in Skype, and then hopefully if people find it like it that way and it's more balanced, then they can just raise the volume of the Twitch stream, and then it should be fixed.
Yeah. Then once
So,
we fix this, never touch obs again.
well, only for our streams. I just have to memorize the parameters for us and then change it back to whatever it is for me.
Right. And if in the future you could always use my XSplit account. That's what XKCD does for our cast. But okay, looks like we're going into our game here. Lil Bo versus IA.
PVZ matchup. This is one of my other favorite matchups. I mean, personally, I like any matchup that isn't a mirror matchup. But I have to say that PVZ is my second favorite. TVP is probably the most boring one, so I hate it. But anyways, we're going to have IA spawning as the blue Zerg up at the 1 o'clock position on Dust Towers, which means down at the 7 o'clock position as the red Protoss is going to be Lil Bo sponsoring Millennium.
Right, and so Lil Bo, the Millennium player, IA, the Invictus Gaming player. And Invictus Gaming, I believe, is a pretty popular Dota team.
Yeah, IG's also has a pretty good League of Legends team as well. They did get knocked out of group stages, I think, though, at Worlds, so that was really interesting. But Lil Bo does sound an early probe, I think, just for scouting, but it could get a little cheeky here with the proxies. But nope, doesn't look like it. And he's also saving up minerals. It looks like it's going to be a next first.
Yeah, he does have that Nexus that is going down here. And okay, so Lil Bo has a lot to live up to. And I think that people may not be satisfied unless he basically wins out and competes for the grand finals, just because of all the aftermath from the WCS round of 16.
Yeah, everyone was talking about, he talked about how, oh, I'm practicing so hard for Legacy of the Void and everything, and like I'm gonna be the best at it. I didn't want to practice for this last one-off tournament or whatever like that. And so yeah, like as you said, it's a lot of pressure on him to perform well, and if he doesn't perform well, then people are gonna be scratching their heads, and honestly, he's probably gonna lose a lot of fans.
I do have some insider information on the Lil Bo situation that I haven't actually shared with anybody. Is that he actually carries around a VHS tape and a VHS player to every tournament where he gets to watch the Karate Kid, and he basically fast forwards, because you actually have to fast forward the tape to the I'm the best around montage, but the VHS player broke, and so he didn't get to listen to it at the WCS, and he thought, well, I don't know if I'm the best anymore.
Oh no, that's gonna mess with him psychologically.
I know. And where's he going to find another VHS player? Those things are ancient.
Hey man, he makes a decent amount of money for a living. He can just go buy one.
Right. I'm sure there's one on eBay somewhere.
But we're going to see the Stargate coming down from Lil Bo here. We always talk about this, and I think that Protoss it's very interesting to know how Protoss has so many tech path trees, and how it naturally goes into, as we said before, detection. Very, very crucial for Protoss to have that detection, and Stargate is going to be coming up. So we're going to probably see that Oracle first build, and then maybe see some either Phoenix or Void Rays, or just continuous Oracle production.
Now, one of these early game gripes that Zerg players had for Legacy of the Void is that because the game is so fast-paced, they were afraid that Overlords were too slow to start off, and that they wouldn't be able to scout builds. And of course, if a player decides to all in or cheese, that it would take them too long to detect it. And most of the response was, well, you have how many drones? Go ahead and send one across the map if you're that concerned, which I think is a valid point.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. I think Zergs are just too conservative with their drones. Send one out to scout. Honestly, it's not going to mess up your build too much. But I want to talk about this game real quick. We have a really quick 4th base from IA being very greedy, playing almost like Flash style with how aggressive he is with expanding. But at the same time, Lil Bo going for double Stargate Phoenix play, and I honestly think this double gate Phoenix play is going to counter this 4 hatch, because
that's exactly what I was thinking. This is a perfect counter to the 4 bases, because
there's no anti-air.
Really spread those drones thin. They're going to be forced to build spore colonies, and you're going to be able to pick off Overlords relatively easily.
Yeah, and think about it. There's not going to be many. That's not going to be many anti-air out. Yeah, sure, you might try to have one queen at each base, but what kind of anti-air does IA have right now? He has literally nothing. He's making 11 drones. like, what is he doing right now? He has no anti-air. This Phoenix play is going to be super, super strong.
And I think that pylon overcharge, is that what we're calling it? Pylon overcharge is strong enough to deal with like a group of Zerglings if the Zerg player decides to just send a bunch into the natural base for a counterattack, realizing that there's only air with these Phoenixes. Oh, and they actually are going to get a queen right here too.
They did
so
a queen.
I think that this is allowing a great opening because of the pylon overcharge that he can build all these Phoenixes out of these Stargates.
Yeah, and we're seeing this Phoenix count rack up really quickly, and it was actually really cute to see that Lilbo saw a drone, and he thought he was probably going to make a spore colony, and he picked up the drone that was about to build a spore colony, delaying the spore for a little bit at that fourth base. So that was pretty cute to watch. But we're going to see now, even though this guy IA managed to power drone up, he's going to have to dedicate a lot of resources to making a lot of these spore colonies, losing drones and minerals to rebuild.
Yeah, and since Phoenixes kite really well, they can just kind of circle around the spore colonies to start doing their continuous attack to overlords. Here's the deal. If this is how Protoss players are going to start opening, it's going to be really reminiscent of Brood War style builds with Corsair openings. And I think that the faster lair and Spire is going to be necessary down the line.
I absolutely agree with you, but we could see Legacy of the Void begin shifting more to a Brood War-esque style of play, and that's exactly what will end up happening. We're gonna see. Look at this, early Hydras coming out from the Zerg player, and guess what?
Do you see that? A carrier?
Yeah, right? 2 carriers coming out from
Lilbo.
He is going mass air. He got that really quick fleet beacon after the double gate, and he's getting +1 air upgrades right now. These Corsairs just doing as much economical damage as possible, picking up overlords when possible. They're gonna pick up Hydra, take that one quickly down, and but he's gonna be halting Phoenix pressure. I'm almost starting to say Corsairs because of how familiar they are now.
Yeah, wow, Flash, this game is getting pretty nasty for Lilbo so far. What a great opening, and I think it's gonna get really scary for IA once those carriers do come out. The way that they can just eject their interceptors to a location, and they just constantly swarm at that one specific location while you can move your carrier safely away is just awesome.
Yeah, I think that's what one of the reasons why carriers were just terrible back in the days, because Blizzard took out their leash mechanic, and that was the biggest thing about carriers and why they were so good back in Brood War. You had a range of 8, I think, when you would shoot out the interceptors, and then you could leash it back to I think like 13, 14 or something like that. And so your carriers would be out of range of like a siege tank once you leashed out all the interceptors, and you had to do a little trick where the interceptors would follow your carrier around so that you didn't have to go within the 8 range anymore.
Right, and that's why you basically, as long as you continued to move, you were going to or attack move, you were gonna be okay. Your interceptors would continue to stay out. And the only reason you'd want to rally your interceptors back is because you get an automatic recharge on your interceptors when they get inside the bay of the carrier.
Ooh, here comes the Nidus Canal, but the pylon block from all the pros. This is hilarious right now. The carriers are probably going to try to snipe out the Nidus Canal, but these Phoenix just picking up every single unit that comes out of the Nidus Swarm. A second was being made in the main, but that was a huge defense.
Lilbo knowing how to respond to this perfectly.
Perfect defense by Lilbo so far.
Oh, but there's another Nidus.
There is another Nidus, but we're going to see how well he's going to defend with this. Oh, the pylon defense is coming out right now from the mothership core, and the Hydra streaming across the map. We're going to see the worms.
Are you kidding me, Flash? This is getting insane.
The worms could be a bait right now. There's also a worm getting to the middle of the map to help reinforce the army, but there's so many cannons at the front. Really, really critical. This is like very, very reminiscent of back in Brood War, where you'd make carriers and just turtle up until you can reach critical mass, and that's exactly what he's doing. Look at all these cannons being placed down.
Oh, but the cannons are really exposed. Usually you just kind of have some buildings in the front here. There's nothing on the ground. And guess what? The pylon overcharge was wasted. Well, not necessarily wasted, but it was used up inside the main base. So he doesn't have that extra energy to help with the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. But, he does have all those carriers. And last time I checked, if carriers are able to micro properly, they're going to absolutely decimate Hydralisk. But look at that. Really cute drone play, making spore colonies out. And here come interceptors swarming all over. Look at this beautiful carrier micro, leash range, and then pulling the back. Oh my God, wow, what happened to the army?
Doing the lifts too at the same time.
Unbelievable.
I think that Protoss is looking quite awesome in Legacy of the Void.
Carriers absolutely melting. 38 Hydras lost. The 52 interceptors lost. That is well beyond, and that's way cost efficient for Lil Bone. That's a great attack that he pulled
So
off.
what is IA doing with his supply? Because he still has 140 supply. It seems like he's still hanging in there. He does have that 4 base economy right now. But what is his army being invested into besides Hydralisks?
It's
I
honestly just
don't think
Hydras.
Hydras are the one and only answer as a unit in this scenario.
I would have preferred Corruptors here, but Hydras, they do cost 2 supply in Legacy of the Void, so that's probably one of the reasons why it looks so high. Again, these Interceptors swarming everywhere, taking out all these Hydralisks. Unbelievable.
Yeah, we're just seeing tons of lifts again. The spore colonies are trying to do damage, but he's not really able to focus the spores on the carriers here. They're just going to get wasted on their interceptors.
Yeah, and this is one of the problems with also in Brood War, the AI of the units of the defense units are just gonna target the interceptors rather than the actual carriers itself. But these carriers have reached critical mass, and he's now transitioning into Void Rays. He's also producing out of 4 Stargates. That is so many Void Rays coming out at one time.
Whoa, and it looked like long distance mining for a second, but yeah, there's actually a 5th base coming up, so that makes a little bit more sense for IA.
Yeah, it's a little scary when you have to start long distance mining. But another Nidusworm is coming out here trying to deny this 4th base, and unfortunately for Lilbo, he's gonna have to pull back.
What's really cool with this Lobo opening is that if he decided to go for like a faster +1 on his Phoenix to do some early game damage, it plays out really well because it's not a wasted upgrade since he did end up going into more Stargate units.
That is actually very critical, and I'm glad you said that actually because because in StarCraft 2 builds efficiency it's a lot more important than in Brood War, and in StarCraft 2 people were like, I think Day9 talked about this for Terran. Every building you make should have some kind of idea. You know what I mean? So like when people did like the 1-1-1 build, the Rax Factory Starport, each building should be doing something at one time. And so he's talking about how like, oh, the barracks, you make your first Reaper. Now it's done its job. It makes a reactor. It's still doing its job. Then it lifts up and scouts. It's still doing something this entire time. And so no building is really wasted.
Right, and I feel like in Heart of the Swarm, Wings of Liberty, if you decided to go for early Phoenixes, that was it. There was no transition to further Stargate. You weren't going to build Void Rays. Weren't going to build carriers. But now we're seeing here, all of that has been created from this Stargate, and it's worked out really well for Lilbo.
Yeah,
I think that this is going to, the way Lilbo has done this is going to be a gimmick build in the future, and Zerg will develop counters to it. But right now, it's very successful. Although it's hard for him to take a 4th, you're seeing that there is a huge weakness on the ground.
It doesn't really matter for him though, as long as he has those cannons up at that 3rd base defending everything. These carriers are just gonna wreak havoc in the base, and there's the GG from IA. I want to say a little bit. Real quickly. That about carriers though is that yeah, sure these things are powerful, but again, if he's gonna stay on those 3 bases the entire time, he's gonna get run out dry real quick of those minerals to rebuild all those interceptors. He lost 200 interceptors that game, and so. Yeah, they're cost efficient, but again, all those minerals just being drained into those interceptors.
Yeah. So we've got to see if IA can show what's counterable here, because a lot of people were trying to discuss on Team Liquid threads how to deal with mass carriers, and the answer seemed to be unanimously the Viper bombs.
Yeah, interesting.
The Viper bombs actually can kill off interceptors in like a single AoE explosion. So imagine just being able to wipe out an interceptor count.
That reminds me of the Boxer CC lift killing the interceptors.
Yeah, if you guys aren't aware of that, you can actually like lift and land a CC on top of interceptors in old pre-patched StarCraft, and it would kill off all the interceptors.
That was hilarious. I loved it when it happened. And it kind of reminds me of it, because you like every time the CC lifted or landed, you'd see this big burst of interceptors dying.
Yeah, my favorite glitch though in StarCraft 1 was to start morphing an Archon, and right in the last pixel of its load, if you cast stasis on it, it gets the stasis orb, but you can walk around with it.
Oh, really? That's so cool.
So you have like this giant stasis orb around you, and people are just like, "Oh my god, you've got this OP Archon." But more so, you should be questioning why the hell your Archon got stasis.
Yeah, why did you waste like 100 energy from an Arbiter on one Archon?
Because you're that good.
You're that good, and you can just waste energy from Arbiters. But we will be going into game 2 here between Lilbo and IA. Lilbo taking game 1 with a sick double gate, course, double Stargate Phoenix build, transitioning into nice +1 carriers. And we're going to be going to game 2 here. Lilbo or IA as the blue Zerg spawning at the 4 o'clock position, which means at the 2 o'clock position as red Protoss is going to be Lilbo.
Yep.
So this map looks pretty interesting. Kind of reminds me of the I can't remember the name of it. It was one of the original beta maps for StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty. It was the one with the gold in between, like, you know, the same spawns is here with the gold in between the two mains. But the mains also had like backdoor rock stem and everything.
Like Metalopolis or whatever.
I forget the name. Let me go check it right now. It reminds me of the map. Really familiar though. SC2 Wings of Liberty.
You know what? In StarCraft 2, the also interesting thing about maps is that they can be longer left to right than top to bottom. And generally, you only have like taller maps than wider maps in StarCraft 1.
That's very true. Let me see. Where is it? Nah, I don't care anymore. Whatever.
So there's a couple things that we want to keep track of in this game to compare it to the first one. One is, you know, how greedy is IA going to get on expanding after, you know, going for fast 4 bases actually hurt him based on Lilbo's build? And is Lilbo going to try and make this build that was so successful in the first game work twice in a row? You know, the same way we saw like Bisu revolutionize a build against Savior by going for it 3 times in a row. Because it was just that darn good.
Yeah, doesn't look like it's going to happen this time though. He did opt for a gateway first, probably expecting IA to maybe do some cheese. He's also building at the front of his ramp, so it's definitely going to be, I think, a different build order. You know, Protoss building placement is also very important to see what kind of build they're going to go for. Even though some of the other players here might not realize it, it is quite important where you place buildings, and that actually does tell about a build.
Yeah, and early on in Legacy of the Void, what you've got to understand is that, you know, seeing a certain order of buildings doesn't necessarily tell you what the direction they're going to go in is, which is why you have to constantly scout and instead identify what buildings exist so you can counter the units that are possible from the existing buildings and tech buildings.
Right, and to set up a counter for that instead. Here we're going to see...
You can't plan right now for more than a Zealot. You can't start saying, oh, this looks like it's going to be that typical robotics facility build because of this gas. Instead, you have to go, okay, let's keep track of how many units are on the map. Okay, he's got Zealots. What is this taking away from him by building a couple Zealots early on?
We will see he opted for Stargate tech again. I'm assuming he's not going to go into double Stargate play this time around, but he is rallying the Stargate to the Overlord, which makes me assume he's going to be making a Phoenix right off the bat. And so we'll see how he adapts his build. Maybe he will go for a second Stargate and just add it on a lot later, but I think he's definitely still producing Corsair first.
Phoenix.
Oh, yes, sorry.
You call Phoenix Corsair, and I keep calling Spore Crawlers Spore Colony.
Oh, the upgraded Overlord drop. He's going to try to sneak Lings in here. And also, again, a second Stargate being added on. We could be seeing the same build order. And slow drop with Lings into the main base. We're going to see how this plans out.
You know what? This is like, basically, I said, well, I did watch your games versus life. And I'm just going to go for these early Lings because I know that apparently you have trouble with these.
And this is actually a perfect adaptation. I has adapted absolutely perfectly to this build that Lilbo has been doing right now. And these Lings are wreaking havoc in the middle line.
Oh,
5
God,
programs, 7 programs
away. Why would he try and take that face on? And you know what? The Mothership Core was really far away. It needed to come back and be able to cast its ability.
Oh my God, he's still slow dropping all these Lings. And Lilbo is still not reacting to it. He lost 13 probes to 8 Lings in that drop.
And he went for a Void Ray. Why is he queuing up a Void Ray? I mean, I guess he needs something that can attack the ground, but the Void Ray is super expensive and going to take a really long time. I guess I answered my own question, though. Okay, so he can't go for anything else but a Void Ray. So Lobo's like kind of screwed himself with this build because of how aggressive IA decided to get.
Yeah, and that's the problem with these newer builds. You know, he hasn't figured out every single counter to the builds and not gonna be able to react accordingly to it. And as you know, IA was like, you're probably gonna go double Stargate again. What comes out from a Stargate again? Oh, fucking, like, you know, Phoenix, Void Ray. I'm gonna make Lings. You can't counter those with those units. And I think he really actually needs an Oracle right now, in my opinion, because Oracles deal with Lings very, very well.
That's a good point. I totally forgot that Oracle was in the arsenal. That he should have built an Oracle over the Void Ray, because it'll come out a lot quicker. And Void Ray is just a really heavy gas investment early on.
Yeah, and also really
But
slow.
to get back to what you were saying, IA, you've got to give him so much credit for being coming up with this ingenious counter to the build off the bat. There was really little downtime between the two games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is why like such great players like as we said before, Flash was so good at best of fives because he was able to adapt so well to his opponent, and that's why he almost never lost more than a game in best of fives. He never let it get it to game
And,
5.
and that's what made like the Korean Air OSL against Effort so memorable, because you finally had someone who did what Flash had been doing to people for so long.
And that was adapt and take 3 games back in a row and and pull a GG play on Flash of all people, the god of best of 5 series.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're gonna see now that these Void Rays, now that he's noticed that because obviously he went for that really quick link pressure, there's not too much anti-air. There's no creeps connecting the bases because he spent all that minerals into links instead of queens to get more creep tumors on the map. But the queen is gonna be taken down here at the 3rd base. But unfortunately, because the queens are walking over now, they're not gonna be able to do any more pressure against the drones.
Yeah, and the queens move so slow off creep. It's just like unbearable to watch almost.
IA did manage to also pick off that probe that was planning to build a 3rd nexus, so that 3rd base will be continuously more and more delayed from Lilbo, and he's actually falling behind supply pretty rapidly now. He's already down 20.
Yeah, Lil Bo's got to start focusing on getting that additional base and continue to be just mobile with these Void Rays. He's got so many of them. Jeez.
Yeah, it's really hard to be mobile with Void Rays though, because they're a very, very slow air unit. They're complete opposites of a Phoenix, where they don't. Phoenix are more of a pew pew kind of faster DPS unit rather than a Void Ray, which is a big chunkier unit. But they're way faster than Void Rays. So especially against Zerg, I honestly feel like Void Rays are only good in late game because you're gonna be so super slow. When you have a Death Ball, you can afford the Void Rays, but at this point in the game, against Speedlings and against Speed Hydras, you really need those Phoenix.
Yeah, Hydras right now, they are slow. Oh, the speed just finished for the Hydras.
Yep, and the Hydras are gonna get
Hydras
right underneath these Void Rays. Oh, 2 Void Rays being taken down.
Oh man, exactly what I was saying here. The Hydras can kill off Void Rays almost immediately.
Yeah, and you see these Void Rays trying to do a little bit of a counterattack, but these Hydras with that nice big range, because Hydras are so known for that, they're able to pick off a few of those Void Rays, get really quickly underneath them. And again, these Hydras getting underneath the Void Rays, losing 2 here in the main. Lilbo is dropping like dropping Void Rays really quickly, losing again his 3rd base to these Hydralisks. The Void Rays are able to do some amount of damage here in the main base, forcing a pull on the drones, but those quick Hydras are just going to be able to be pulled back, and they might try to snipe the Mothership Core. No, they won't be able to.
This is looking really bad for Lobo because he wasn't able to secure that 3rd. And even though he has been able to stop mining for a decent time inside the main base is already starting to run low on minerals. So it's not a priority for economy for IA at this time. And what may have been his objective to take out that lair did not happen. So Lair's still alive too, and Hydras can still be produced.
That was a huge waste of energy using the pylon overcharge, and then the pylon gets instantaneously sniped by the Hydras. A big miscalculation by Lilbo, especially when the pylon was already at like half health and it was at the front.
Yeah, and it's so funny because every time you're going to put that overcharge on a pylon, you're basically saying, I'm okay with this pylon dying because they're going to have to focus this down.
And these Hydras are just getting right underneath the Void Rays, and yeah, that's going to be GG from Lilbo.
Yeah,
great
no way
game from IA. Great game. I think you gotta give IA so much credit for that. Great adaptation to the builds that Lilbo throughout, and he realized, okay, I know you're going 2 Stargate. I know you don't like building oracles. Guess what? I'm gonna build links because I'm gonna counter your entire build, kill your entire worker line in the main base, and then I know you're gonna still commit to those Void Rays. I'm gonna make speed Hydras, and I'm gonna destroy you like that because Hydras are great against those Void Rays.
Yeah, I would have to say that Lilbo in the game number 1, he, instead of actually like showing exceptional play, he showed an exceptional build order, and the IA basically figured out how to counter that exceptional build order. So I don't know if we've actually seen these players, show a better skill than the other. What we're just seeing is good counters to each other. So hopefully in this game number 3, we can actually see, even footing game where these players are actually tested on their micro ability.
Yeah, I want to say something that I didn't get to mention during the game, but Lilbo's build in game one is a really nice, cheeky best of one build. It's great one time in an extended series. When you go for multiple times, you get very, very predictable, and that's a problem with specifically a problem with Flash, and I think you know this very, very well. Is that Flash
Yeah.
continues to do the same build over and over again, even though the build isn't a Bisu build, right? It's not it's very counterable, and so that's I think a problem with Lilbo in game two. IA predicted him to go for the same build again, or roughly the
Yeah.
same build, and so he was able to counter it really, really easily. Lilbo's carry build was very, very cute, very, very cheeky of him. It's a great build order. I will give him all credit for that, but it's a best of one build. It's not an
This
extended
is
series
where
build.
if Lobo had a coach, he would have talked to Lobo, said, "Okay, this is what worked in game number one. He's probably gonna try and suspect this from you. Go for a one Stargate opening build again, but then stop at one Stargate and go for ground. Make sure you're taken care of in the early game. And if you do want to transition and get a second Stargate, you can pick the build back up after you get your third. But he doesn't have to force, a double Stargate play in order to win his games. And so
Absolutely.
I think that he could have totally played mind games with IA if he started the Stargate, but then something completely different.
Absolutely, I agree on this one. And we're going to be going to game three here. IA spawning as the blue Zerg at the 11 o'clock position, and as the red Puras is going to be Lilbo spawning down at the 7 o'clock position. I wanted to talk a little bit more about that, with that coach just telling him, don't do that. And obviously builds haven't been really figured out yet entirely, but I want to
Right?
say this: back in Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty, when you see Progresses go for more air heavy builds, they didn't skip out on the ground defenses. You would still see them build the decent amount of sentries that they need, a decent amount of stalkers, and then slowly transition into an air build. That's why they went one gate or one Stargate, and then build maybe three gateways, and then built that extra Stargate, and where they knew they could afford to get that second Stargate without giving up too much of the ground defenses. And that's a problem with Lilbo there. He made one Zealot that entire game, and then went straight into air.
Exactly. And
He had no
and
ground
there's
defense.
no other race that's more punishing to that than Zerg because Zerglings are so effective on the ground when you're suddenly just sparse on those ground defending units.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things with Protoss is that you when you go for a tech path and you're kind of committed, right? And you don't usually see like a one robo into a one Stargate. Like that doesn't really happen as much. When you commit to that one Stargate, you really need that ground defense first. And that's why in Heart of Swarm, when you saw Protoss, that you would always go for those mostly, Sentry, Stalker, Zealot heavy build, and then slowly add on, again, as I said, making sure they have the defenses first, and then pushing out with more air or with more Robotech. This game or last game, Lobo did not show that. He went straight air and he got punished for it.
Yep. And now we are seeing that the natural base is coming up. You had a gateway first to just basically, secure getting out one zealot early on. And I think overall solid opening for Lobo. He's gonna be okay. You see that speed is coming up pretty quickly for these Zerglings. So I think that IA is gonna try and harness life a little bit and try and cripple Lobo a little bit in this early game.
Lilbo will have that wall off at the front though, so the Zerglings probably won't be able to do too much damage. He does have a Zealot, and he's also building a Stalker right now. He's got a second gateway. He's prioritizing ground more, and I think he's going to play a much more standard game this time than games 1 and 2.
Yeah. And
So
and so I saw only one zealot that come out, and I was gonna say, do you continue producing zealots, or what? If you're going with gateway units, what do you go with next? And he made the decision to go with additional stalkers, but people also in the thread commented, "Where are the adepts?" And I agree. Adepts are really good early units that can do a lot of damage and they can do a lot of harassment. Maybe Lil Bo's kind of shying away from it because they do take a lot of micro to use effectively.
yeah, I mean, maybe he's not comfortable with the Adepts yet. And that's why he's just not using it, or maybe he hasn't played around with them enough yet. Usually, you'll see actually, at least back in Heart of Swarm, you'll see mostly sentries being made after the initial Zealot, and that's because force fields are so great at defending early on any kind of pressure. And we do see still a Stargate being made now with an Oracle being produced, but as we said from before, this time he has ground defenses. He's not gonna die to a quick, speedling all in or whatever.
Yeah, this is perfect. Coming out with the Oracle first will help deal with killing off Lings very fast. The reason for the Stalker over a Sentry first, after the Zealot, is so he could start clearing out the Overlords from his base as he's
Very
doing right
nice.
now.
Yeah.
And you can just do that a little bit quicker than using like that like laser beam that comes out of the Sentry.
And we see the Oracle coming out now, and Overloader will spot it, so we're going to see the Queens get into position, and that's exactly what IA is doing. Great minimap awareness, and they're going to start picking up this Oracle. Oracle is taking a lot of damage, wow.
Man.
It went into the red. That is a little uncharacteristic of Lilbo right there. But he is now making a little more adepts. I think he made 3 adepts in total so far, and he's also transitioning into Void Ray.
Yeah, adepts actually become like a pretty stout unit once they get their upgrades in the later game too. So they do scale upward, and I think that's really cool because sometimes you see the unit could have been overlooked. It could have been like, okay, this is what it is.
Oh, the Oracle got taken down by the Ravager
my
shots.
God.
Poor micro by Lilbo. Meanwhile, oh man, the pylon with the energy or the
These Ravager
overcharge.
shots are looking really good.
Yeah, the pylon with the energy being powered onto it got taken out immediately. The Ravagers are doing serious work here, absolutely critical right now. But this is a lot of Ravagers. I'm not sure how Lilbo's gonna be able to defend against this.
Right. And do you try and focus on the Ravagers that have more armor and health, or do you try and pick off the Roaches, which are potential Ravagers down the line?
Do Ravagers actually have more armor and health than Roaches? I thought they only got the Corrosive Bile upgrade added to
I thought they got a little bit beefier.
Let me double check.
Maybe they just look beefier.
They do look, but I feel like they take the same amount of damage as before because they do get chunked out quite a lot. If we watch, if you remember back to the Flash Ganon versus Snoot Lilbo game, Marauders did a serious number on the Ravagers.
Yeah.
So let me see.
But you would need a unit like an Immortal to do that same amount of damage. Honestly, you're not going to get that from a Gateway unit.
That's very true. I'm just going to see here. The Ravager is 120 hit points with only 1 armor and 16 damage. And let me pull up the Roach. You can keep commentating this game while I'm looking away.
Dude, I'm just like, I'm on the edge of my seat waiting for this information here. I need to be educated. Oh man, that is a lot of adepts though. The adepts, like, they have these like awesome hoods behind their head. I think they look really badass.
What the hell? It says 100 and... The Ravager has a speed of 1.79. There's no change there.
Oh, here come the adepts. They're actually just racing past the Ravagers here to go inside of the base. Is he going to get a cancel, or he's just blinking right in the middle of the Ravagers?
Oh my god, those Ravager shots. Did you see all those Ravager shots just destroy all those ground forces in the front?
That was a terrible decision by Lilbo.
Oh my god, and the chase with these corrosive bile shots, and his ground army is just getting completely decimated right now. And this is great. It's like hiding ability, shooting the corrosive bile forces in front. Wow, mass adepts. I'm not sure if this is going to actually work out that great. We're going to see if the adept ability is going to be used here to kind of chase into the Ravagers. But the Ravagers are still doing a serious damage and zoning out with that corrosive bile.
Oh yeah, they're doing a great job of just chasing down these adepts, forcing them away. And behind this, IA is expanding towards his Protoss opponent. And this is something you see in StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2. When you're the aggressor, it's so much easier to defend your bases if you put them in the direction of your opponent.
And that's a really crucial point. As we have, again, another big engagement here. These Ravagers and Roaches just doing a big number on the Protoss army. But I want to make a remark on that, and this is very, very common in the TVP matchup. Terrans would commonly expand towards their opponent against Protoss, or even against another Terran opponent. And the reason why is because the siege tanks would move with the base, and so they'd get closer and closer to Protoss, and they would be able to make a siege line really like right next to the Protoss natural.
Right, because if you're in a mobile army, you don't have the time to go like all the way across the map to what may be a safer base if you had a faster army. Instead, you've got to hold your ground and just like turtle push towards your opponent. And these slow pushes are just really deadly.
Right, and Ravagers and Roaches are not the most mobile of units. There's so many Ravagers out right now doing a big number on this front line. Here comes a big fight right now. We're gonna see how good the corrosive bile shots are. Pretty good at zoning out the army, but decent micro by Lilbo. I'm not sure if he has enough firepower though. The adepts are still doing a decent amount of damage right now and more reinforcing right now. The Ravagers still trying to shoot off the corrosive bile, but again, great micro by Lilbo, but I don't think it's enough units.
This is non-stop Ravager shots hailing down though, and I'm surprised that there's still a Void Ray that managed to stay alive and continuing to do damage here. There's just way too many Ravagers, even though he's doing Lilbo's doing a great job of microing with his adepts. He's gonna have to call GG.
IA taking out Lilbo. Unbelievable play by Lilbo. Fantastic play, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, he held on as well as he could with the unit composition that he had, but I think overall Lilbo just chose poorly with his unit composition and made a really bad move when he had so many adepts to just like do the ghost walk right into all of them.
Yeah, that was a really critical mistake that I think gave up a lot of his, a big portion of his early army, and at least 50% of his army by doing that really poorly timed blink in with the adepts. And I honestly don't think that mass adept is a good unit composition against Ravager Roach.
Right.
Doesn't seem very effective. I honestly think that Blink Stalkers would have been much better. Blink, obviously easily able to kite out all those corrosive bow shots, and the fact that Stalkers are such a mobile unit, they're just able to easily dodge those corrosive bow shots anyways.
Man, so I think we gotta say IA, he got crushed in the first game and just totally threw that to the side and said, I don't care how bad I lost to those carriers, and it just came back with the best mental state possible for the final two games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is a sign of someone with a great mental mentality when you just like say, I don't care, like whatever. You took game one off me. Okay, I'm gonna come back and destroy you. He destroyed Little Bo in games 2 and 3, and it was a fantastic to watch IA play such perfection in games 2 and 3. It was unbelievable to watch.
Right. And this puts Lil Bo in a difficult position because I believe it's gonna drop him. No, it's not. Okay. So Lil Bo I thought was gonna drop down to Jaedong, but actually Lil Bo is gonna drop down and play either the winner of Shana or Flash.
Ooh, if Flash
Yeah,
advances
so
from
I
that would
think
be interesting.
Lil Bo is probably gonna get a little bit nervous if Flash advances and has to play him.
That would be quite entertaining to watch, Wow, I mean, IA, honestly, I felt like these Chinese players wouldn't be that good, but hey, look at this. IA 2-1 over Lilbo and 2-0 over Flash. And, Shauna also, managed to take a game off of Lilbo. Mystery managed to take a game off of Snoot. So these Chinese players are actually doing quite a bit against these foreigners.
Yeah. So IA and he won a ZVT. He won a ZVP. And now he's actually going to be challenged in a ZVZ.
Yeah, exactly. So this is going to be a great test to watch IA. And, it makes me think, wow, IA is a great Zerg right now. I think he's, a pretty decent force to watch out for in Legacy of the Void right now.
Yeah. Jaedong, though, against Snoot. Snoot had some really good ZVZ play. And Jaedong had a questionable game number one, obviously, with all those drones going in. But I think Snoot looked pretty solid in ZVZ in the second game. So IA's definitely got a road ahead of him that he's going to have to, take this one very seriously.
I agree. I think it's going to be a great match to commentate on Thursday, I want to believe, because it's in 2 days. And I'm very looking forward to that match. I think that's going to be one of the hypest matches of this tournament, besides, maybe it was possible if Lilbo won this one for a Snoot Lilbo matchup.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be insanely hype.
Yeah, but IA has been showing up really hard to this tournament. I'm really, glad to see him doing extremely, extremely well. It's always nice to not just watch Koreans just smash everyone, but he's making a name for himself and he's doing well. Maybe he'll pick up more and more expensive sponsors along the way.
And guys, thank you for joining in on this cast. I see that there's more and more of you coming in. I am BisuDagger, my co-caster Flash for the win. We are just having a blast casting this. We love all these players. I mean, Jaedong, Flash, Lilbo, Snoot are the ones that we're really familiar with. Actually, Jim is someone that I've been watching play StarCraft 2 for quite a while. But it's really cool to see that the Chinese scene is having some successes.
Yeah, and it's really cool to note that the Chinese scene is actually, I think, getting more and more into StarCraft. Remember how in the current post-Kespa era for Brood War, the Chinese scene is getting more and more popular. They had like 2v2 leagues and everything. They have more tournaments. And I still remember when Korean Air OSL Season 2 was held in Shanghai, if you remember. So
yeah,
China, yeah, so China is actually, getting more and more into StarCraft. And I think that's awesome to see another country getting really, really big onto it.
Yeah, the COSL, which stands for basically Chinese OSL, is currently going on. And because the Koreans are so far ahead, they actually have a handicap in the OSL in China where every other game they have to off-race.
Wait, really?
Yeah, in a best of 7, if, let's say Movie is playing Protoss, he has to play either Zerg or Terran every other game.
Dude, I hate to bring his name up, but who would be really good in this format? Savior. Because he has a sick Terran, off-race Terran.
They actually let Savior play in Chinese leagues, which was
Right.
also controversial.
Yeah.
But he was actually cleaning up in 2v2 leagues. In 1v1, he just didn't find that same success.
Yeah, his 1v1 has been seriously slipping, but I did remember seeing a lot of talk about how he's been, showing up at 2v2 leagues, and it's been very interesting. But I still think that Xavier would be one of those interesting guys, back in his prime at least, to watch him play in that kind of a format where you have to off race in game 2. His Terran was good, and if I recall, he played Terran in an OSL final.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what the entire God of War Part 1 and I believe there's a Part 2 now series on Team Liquid is all about. If you guys don't know about those final edits, they're just like godly written. And the Savior final edit, it talks about how he would play TVZ as Terran even though he was a Zerg player because he thought it would teach him more about the builds. He would understand every single quirk about a TVZ build. So when he played Zerg, he would automatically identify with it. And I thought, that's brilliant. How many people are doing that? How many people are going out of their way to learn the intricacies of the other race so they can pick up on it that much quicker?
Not many, and that's one of the things. I think that's honestly one of the reasons why Savior was a god and revolutionized ZVT, because he knew exactly everything about Terran. He's like, all right, I'm playing Terran. If I was a Zerg, what would I do right now? Or what could the Zerg do to punish me in this exact moment? And he's like, oh my god, I should do that. And so that's why he invented, he popularized the 3-hash meta, he popularized the backstab play, and he popularized basically it revolutionized ZVT as we know it.
Yeah. And these are build orders and ingenious strategies that have carried their way into StarCraft 2, even though it's a different game. And basically people learn from these lessons and how to approach the game, and it's more of a mentality that's been carried on than a specific like, oh, you need to play a unit this particular way.
Yeah, that's a great idea to have. I think races should be played more than just their build order. They have to have a lot more ground and fundamentals behind them and how to actually play the race by itself. And I think that's why the best players of every race understood how to play those. Back in Brood War, Jaedong, Flash, Bisu and Stork, and Jangbi to some extent, they understood their race. Flash understood the unbelievable turtle nature of Terran, having siege tanks, having widow mines, having missile turrets everywhere on the map, and he understood the great defensive capabilities. Jaedong understanding the ability to be super aggressive with Zerg, and how he could exploit every tiny not aggressive aspect of Terran and Protoss, and how mobile his forces were.
Yeah. So taking away like where we're just saying, okay, understanding your race rather than build orders. And when there was this big transition to the, Kespo finally came over, the elephant in the room finally happened. These players are now playing StarCraft 2 professionally. Okay. Well, some of the players weren't successful that you expected to be successful. And the most notable one for me is always going to be Classic, who was a Terran player in StarCraft 1, but understood that the race itself just didn't play the same, but Protoss actually fit his style a lot better. And instead of like trying to have some loyalty to the race, he had a loyalty to the way he played. And that's why he's like this amazing Protoss player now, because he finally switched. And a lot of people thought like the same thing for Bisu. If Bisu had actually switched over to maybe a Terran or a Zerg player, he may have been a lot more successful.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, with the high amounts of APM that Bisu had, and how I wouldn't say that Protoss got less harass oriented, but it did hamper because there's no more like super speed warp prisms or whatever, and DTs were arguably not as good back in StarCraft 2 with all the different modes of detection out. Maybe he should have gone Terran. I think the medevac plays would have been really great for Bisu personally.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing to say that a race requires less APM than another race. But high APM would be wasted on the Protest race, especially in Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty. So, I mean, that's where I think a lot of players needed to understand where their strengths lie and have done race switching at that time. But they built up an entire fan base based on the race that they played and their successes around that.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's really key to know. It's like, yeah, I can switch races, and I can try to do something to get better at the game. But what about my fans who know me for only being this kind of a player? Like, I look at Flash right now, And honestly, if Flash changed race, I'd still be the biggest Flash fan ever, anyways. But it would still hamper his fan base a lot if he were to change from Terran to some other race, even if it might have favored him.
Yeah, it's like he has to make Terran work because he's such an icon for that race. He's the leader of it, you know? He's the
Yeah,
old guard.
yeah, absolutely, and that's something I was talking about. I think with someone before. It was like honestly, maybe Flash would have done better with a different race. And we'll never know about that. But because Flash doesn't do so well with Terran right now, we always question what would he have done better if he played Protoss or Zerg.
Yeah. And of course, someone knowing that I am BisuDagger is bringing up the Shine OSLs.
Of course they would.
I'm practically numb to that stuff. And I always point out to StarCraft 2 fans that Bisu has a winning record versus Shine. And in fact, one of the most entertaining games of all time in StarCraft 2 was Bisu versus Shine, where they went down to like the final building in the game. It was so intense. And Bisu like came up with his like brilliant final last strategy to storm all his units in and kill off like a spore crawler.
Damn, that is sick. I mean, I think honestly, I would take Bisu like 9 out of 10 times in those kind of situations because he is so smart at the game and he would know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
So we do have one more game tonight before I finally take off and drink the rest of my coffee and pull an all-nighter.
And guys, it is Flash for the Win's birthday. Let's just point that out first.
Oh my god.
So the only way to make him happy is to triple the viewership number. So tweet this out. Guys, tell everybody to join the BisuDagger stream, please. We want you all to be in here and make Flash a happy birthday boy.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You guys don't need to do that, but if you could, that'd be awesome. I mean, I'm having a great time casting this. I never thought I'd be this hyped up and excited to cast with you, BisuDagger, but I've always wanted to do this. But I don't know anything about StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty. Legacy of the Void, but this is so fun and entertaining for me to do with you, and it has been a absolute pleasure to be casting with you.
Yeah, I think it's about the newness of Legacy of the Void and the fact that just like we have some pretty fun times casting with each other. We take it with a grain of salt and have fun. So
absolutely. And Jim with
great.
the 03, those some great statistics to look at.
Oh, poor Jim. Jim's been around for a while too.
Yeah, I still remember, I think, a little bit of Jim from some of the older StarCraft games. I think I still remember his name popping up here or there. Thank you guys in the chat for wishing me happy birthday. Thank you, Alan Darity. I have no idea. And my boy, Amazing XKCD.
What? XKCD's in here? Of course he is, because he's the only jerk with the white font.
Yeah, no one likes the XKCD. That's why I changed to black background.
Oh, man. What's up, XKCD? He is my Vance Star League co-caster. If you guys aren't aware of him, he's also a TL writer. He works his ass off for Counter-Strike 2. So, guys, give him his props.
Yeah, super big props to Amazing XKCD, man. Big shout out to him. He's an amazing person in our community. And, just the amount of work that he puts in every single day to this site is amazing.
Yeah, hey, there's no way we would work hard for Counter-Strike. I mean, does anybody actually play that game? I do not know.
Hey, man, I play that game. I'm MGE. Although, to Amazing XKCD, he probably like, oh, MGE, you suck, dude. That's like bronze.
Oh, man. Yeah, I wouldn't want to kill the scene, so that's why I don't play.
Oh my god.
They would have to make a new league for me.
Below Silver 1, even though people in Silver 1 already play without a monitor turned on half the time.
Yeah, I mean, like, Icy Cup doesn't have a league low enough for me, so I don't play on Icy Cup anymore.
I'm sure you're still better than me in Brood War, man.
D Midas has become too competitive for me, damn it.
Oh man, I only maxed out at like D plus and could hold my own against C rank players, man. But I remember when I used to be D minus. That was some fun days, man.
Oh God, Flash, we have Shell Shock in the thread too, and I have had some of my most fun 4v4 and like random casting moments with Shell Shock. I believe I casted a drunken 1v1 between him and another community member.
That is really, really fun. So
All
anyways,
right, we're in the game.
yep, gonna be getting into the game here. We're gonna have Jieshi as the red Protoss up at the 1 o'clock position, again on Dust Towers, and we're gonna have the blue Protoss in Gym spawning at the 7 o'clock position.
Yeah, so we're early guesses here. It's kind of hard to predict who's going to advance between these two players. I guess you could say it's kind of a mystery.
Kill yourself.
Okay.
No, god damn it, man. I want to give my I would have to put my bet on anyone. I put it on Mystery because he did take a game off of Snoot, and Jim took no games off Jaedong, and Snoot beat Jaedong. So that means Mystery must be decent.
Oh wow, that was amazing logic. I love that.
Meanwhile, these guys are doing pretty mirrored builds right now, pylon into Gateway into Quick Nexus here. We're going to see that from Mystery. I don't know why they call them Jieshi, but whatever.
Yeah, maybe that's the Chinese word for it. And I just like, as you saw the probes like cross each other's paths, they kind of like have their like fish fins out to give each other high fives.
Yeah, I love it when the workers do that across the map. But I don't think Jieshi is the Chinese word for mystery, although I haven't been practicing Chinese in a while. But
we're gonna have someone figure this out for us.
Yeah, someone in the chat, tell me what Jieshi means if any of you guys are Chinese and would like to inform me how shitty I am at Chinese. But anyways, yeah, mirrored builds. Look at the build order tab here. It is perfectly matched and mirrored.
Yeah, this is hilarious. But Jim with the slight edge, a little bit more minerals, or maybe that just means his macro is worse.
Oh, and here is where the builds will. Oh, never mind. Jim went for the adept just right after Mystery made it.
And
So,
you could see that they both switched their chrono boost to the gateways too.
yeah, this is exactly perfect builds. I wonder if they practice against each other. And right now, Mystery with the Mothership Core and Jim a little bit skipping on that. We'll see how that plays out.
Well, to point out something, Jim and IA are actually on the same team with IG, and Mystery is not on their team.
Interesting to note that. And here comes the adept sending out that blink, so when it gets there, it's going to be a little faster. And same with Jim. Doing the exact same
I just
thing.
looked it up. Mystery's team is called Braveheart. That's kind of cool.
Braveheart. That's a pretty cool name. I love this what they're doing right now. I'm pretty sure the adepts also saw each other running across the map.
Oh,
but the
wow.
adepts just, ghosting, trying to get to the enemy base as fast as possible before that Mothership Core pops out and is able to deny them. But meanwhile, both players again going for Stargate. They're exactly mirrored. And here is the Stalker going to be ready to try to attack the adept. And here it comes. Adept is going to try to get into the middle line. And they two-shot probes. That is one thing really key about adepts.
Yeah, already taking on a few probes here. It's out of shields though. It's gonna go down in health, and I think that the Stalker is gonna end up getting rid of it. So both these players are gonna end up losing their adepts.
And they're still mirrored. They both lost 2 probes.
Wow.
Oh, Jim, is his adept still alive? Oh, it is still alive. It's another kill. It is still going around and being super pesky here. Wow, 4 kills now, and I think it's gonna get one more. It is gonna get one. No, he missed micro auto cancel up and finally gets it. 5 kills on that. So Jim taking a slight lead right now with 2 extra workers to.
You know what? You know what I think the difference was is that Jim automatically pulled enough probes to try and trap the adept behind the mineral line, and well, I'm sure we didn't really get to see Mystery micro against it, but it didn't seem like he pulled the same amount of probes. So Jim just knowing how to react just a little bit better.
Yeah, Jim also I think went straight to the natural, which is probably where Stalkers wouldn't be. If you think about it, Stalker would be waiting in the main base, which is the first choke point. And that's exactly what Mystery did instead. Mystery went into the main, and that's where the Stalker was already waiting for him, while Jim went into the natural. There was no defenses there. Looking at the build orders again, a little bit differing up again. Mystery has opted for Oracle first, while Jim has gone for a Phoenix first. And I think that if he leaves the Phoenix at home to deal with this Oracle, it will be a counter to the Oracle, and the Phoenix probably will be able to actually take out. And there's 2 Phoenix here actually ready to go attack this Oracle, and Jim finally pulling those Corsairs over to deal with it.
Oh, you mean Phoenixes?
Oh yeah, I keep calling them Corsairs. But that Oracle only got 1 kill.
Corsairs.
The Oracle only got 1 kill, and so those Phoenix did their job. And that's a decent investment into that Phoenix. I mean, the Oracle, So his course, the Phoenix count will be a little bit lower than Jim's.
But
Oh my
okay,
god.
so the Phoenixes are what I initially thought were just like a good counter to Oracle play, the same way you build like a Viking against a Banshee.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, it seems like in PvP that Phoenix versus Phoenix air battles might be coming back into style. This is something we really haven't seen since like 2013 PvP and Heart of the Swarm early on.
Yeah, early on Hearthstone, I remember those big Corsair versus Corsair fleets, and it'd be all about going two gate Corsair all the time. And this is, maybe where we were going back to in the beginning of Legacy of the Void before Protosses figure out a decent PvP build instead. But until then, we're going to be stuck with these Corsair versus Corsair and really cute and beautiful engagements in the skies.
Right. Do you think it's a product of the fact that you have the faster second base? Both Protoss players got their natural right away. And so that means you can support just constant production of Phoenixes. And while like the meta for recent PvPs in Heart of the Swarm was Archons and Colossi, which were massive units that can't be lifted, which is a good counterplay to the Phoenixes. But now you can't get those units out quite as fast as you could get out a critical amount of Phoenixes.
That could be. I mean, absolutely. Again, I feel like Phoenix play is a little bit cheeky in a way because, if you're not ready for Phoenix, your mineral line is getting completely shut down and destroyed. Meanwhile, here comes Jim with a lot of these Phoenixes, taking out all the Phoenixes from Mystery.
Oh, man.
Great attack from Jim, whittling down that air army into absolutely nothing. But as another tech switch path, Jim went for Fleet Beacon and for a Twilight Council, while Mystery has gone for a proxy Dark Shrine.
Yeah, I feel like he just Mystery is feeling that he needs to get some damage done, additional damage. If he can sneak in this DT, basically, it'd be really good for him. Now, Jim, he's got all these Phoenixes on the map, and he's not constantly scouting the map to check for this type of thing. Oh my god,
so many probes going down.
Probes.
10 probes going down for a trade of maybe one Phoenix at most.
Totally worth that push in.
Absolutely great play by Jim. And if we look over here, there are cannons in both the main and the natural base for Jim, so I think he will be well equipped to deal with these Dark Templar. Maybe not so much in the third. I don't think there is a detection yet in there, but here comes the DTs running up the ramp. Jim does not realize this yet, but again, more Phoenix play coming to natural, and here comes the cannon attacking this DT, and Mystery's going to realize this and be horrified. Yeah. Absolutely. He did manage to pick up a few of the probes, 7 probes going down to these DTs so far, 8 probes. Oh my god. What are you doing, Jim? You're, piss poor rally point. But most of the probes were killed from the third base, but he's going to have to get out a quick Oracle right now to deal with these DTs as soon as possible.
Yeah, losing only 8 probes actually isn't too terrible. And, he's going to be able to clean up these DTs soon enough. Once that Oracle does come out, actually the Nexus is getting really low.
I think he's gonna lose it.
I did not expect this.
All right, so these DTs actually was very, very worthwhile, and managing to pick off that third base is actually gonna be very, very critical because the third base of Mystery is up already. So he's gonna have a nice, comfortable economic lead for a little period of time. Even though he did lose a lot of those probes early on from those Phoenix, but 12 probe kills kind of evened out that probe deficit.
Yeah, I thought if the DTs didn't get any damage done, that it was going to be automatic GG. And with those cannons in the right place, I totally didn't expect the fact that there would be so much damage at this third base where he didn't have that detection. So now Jim's dealing with quite a bit here. These DTs always just continually doing damage here. And the third is way behind where Mystery is, and Mystery's gonna have been preparing for the Phoenixes just constantly during this time.
Jim did one of the biggest, I think a very big amateurish mistake, and that is bringing all of your detection away from your base when you know your opponent is going for DTs. He pulled both the Oracles away, and he's doing it again. There is still no detection in his base.
The most important thing for him right now is to just take care of his third.
Yeah, and he brought away those 2 Oracles and finally has a cannon set up as third base, but those DTs did so much damage, and it's such an amateur mistake to do that, especially when you're at this high of a level right now, and the 4th base for Mystery now going up, he's really sitting comfortably now at this juncture, and again picking off that Mothership core, not doing as much as these Phoenixes should be doing, and the blink for Stalkers is up to deal with these Phoenix.
Yeah, the blink is really good. I can't believe he moved so many Stalkers out of place, though. He had like a really good spread of Stalkers between his main and natural, and he just maybe F2'd all his units to chase down the Phoenixes to deal with
Oh
them.
my god, he is not doing well for defense. See, this is very, very amateur mistake again from these pros. Losing 25 probes, 26 probes
Oh
from
my
all these
god, this
Phoenix.
is just disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely disgusting. And finally realizing that he should have half the stalkers in both bases to deal with these Phoenix. He did, again, an amateur mistake. Why are you bringing everything away from your base when you should be protecting both areas at once?
Oh,
26
now we're gonna see
probes.
the Oracles push in here and try to get some damage too. So what's
Unfortunately.
really cool is that as the Phoenixes die off, it's really just freeing up supply for the new army composition that Jim's going to be building towards,
Yeah, mass
which is going to be
adept.
more Colossus based and Void Ray supported.
There's Void Rays. I haven't seen a Colossus being made yet. I have seen a few Immortals, but this is, I think, a mostly adept build. He's finally getting up that Templar Archives, though. He is a little bit behind on tech compared to Mystery, but he's probably going to transition into more Archons like Mystery has done. He's gone more Stalker Archon heavy rather than...
Yeah, that's a good
Right
point.
there.
I was looking at the upgrade list down there, and I thought the +1 attack was actually the Lance upgrade for the extended Lance on the Colossus. So that's why I
I
was
see.
predicting that. But good point. It's only going to be Immortals from the robotics facility.
I want to say something very crucial right now. Jim, as much economic and probe kills as he's gotten so far, is still behind on workers. He's still behind on bases, and Mystery is still able to produce all of these probes really quickly. And Jim losing those 2 oracles really carelessly, that is not something you want to be doing. Those are crucial units for detection and for that I don't know what that ability is called, but it's where you reveal all your enemy units.
Yeah. I'm short on the name too, unfortunately.
Oh man,
Well,
still losing his,
reveal is what we'll call it.
yeah, he's losing more Phoenix really carelessly right now. And here comes Mystery going to push out with all these Blink Stalkers and Archons. And I think, honestly, his army is a tad bit stronger than Jim's. And he's, again, Jim losing more and more Phoenix. And here comes a big attack. The Archons in the front doing a lot of big splash
Stalkers,
damage.
basically, they're going to rely on Blink to micro around this army here. There's quite a bit of Archons and Void Rays here. But the Phoenixes are just a non-factor. They've been nearly killed off at this point in the game.
Wow,
And
Blink Stalker's
just
doing
JC's
so
got a
much
huge
damage,
lead.
but there are 2 more Immortals, but the Immortals are getting focus fire by this. Stalkers are focus fire. There are no more Immortals. I think Mystery is going to take game 1. A beautiful army composition.
Going to be GG. Can you believe it, Flash? Mystery just overcame all odds. It seemed like he was really going to be down early on in this game. A great comeback play with the DTs.
Absolutely. And I think the critical turning point was those DTs making their way into that third base of Jim, delaying a third, and then proceeding to that, delaying a fourth. And you know how crucial and important extra bases are, especially in Legacy of the Void with the lower mineral count fields.
What a game we just saw. That was a great PvP.
Great turnaround by Mystery, and I'm really, really happy to see him do that. He didn't really give up, even though he lost so many probes from those Phoenixes. And yeah, the Phoenixes did quite a bit of probe kills, but again, with 4 Nexus and Chrono Boost on all 4 Nexus, he could remacro up those probes in no time at all, and that's exactly what he did. He realized he had an economic lead. He's going to continue to push forward with that, grab and stay an extra base above Jim, and Jim really didn't really have an answer to those DTs and to that extra base, and that's why he crumbled.
We've watched 3 PvPs, I believe now, because the first PvP series was a 2-0 from yesterday. And what we've seen so far is that there is no stand by and just get a massive death ball. That is almost non-existent from what we're seeing. And I think that's a really breath of fresh air coming from all, those Wings of Liberty nightmares
Oh
just
my
still
God.
sit back in our minds. And this is just really cool to see something different.
I agree completely. That's one of the reasons why I hated StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty. It was just, oh, I'm going to turtle on 2 or 3 bases, max load 200, and push out. And whoever wins that fight wins the game. It was honestly one of the most boring times of StarCraft. And even pros would be doing this because they're the highest chance of winning. And obviously pros want to win. And so it made for some of the most boring games ever. But we're actually pushing more back to Brood War style where there's smaller skirmishes across the map rather than just 200 armies just clashing together.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how like this slight economic change is actually a massive economic change.
Absolutely. And we're going to be going into game number 2 here. We're going to have Jim as the teal, changing the colors up a little bit at the 4 o'clock position, which means that Mystery as the red Puros is going to be spawning at the 10 o'clock position. This is going to be cross map, so I'm expecting a much longer game.
It is interesting that you point out that we are seeing the teal color when it has been consistently red and blue since as far as yesterday for our casting.
Maybe Jim's just more comfortable on the teal color. We'll have to see.
Yeah, yeah. He just really needs to have that teal.
I want to point out something in these games. It's pretty cool that as we commentate, I find myself having less and less time to just kind of banter before games start, especially in Legacy of the Void. I remember back in Brood War for the first, 3 or 4 minutes, I could be talking about whatever the hell I wanted. I really wouldn't miss a single thing. But now in Legacy of the Void, with Blizzard, adding in those extra workers to speed the games up a lot, it has given us literally maybe at most 30 to 1 minute of talking random stuff.
This is gonna put me out of business, Flash. That the early game is where I strive. I can just think of the most horrific and random things to, just put into your brain while you have to sit for 5 minutes for the game to pick up. But
Yeah.
no, we have to start commentating right away. That's insane.
Yeah, that is. I think that's actually Blizzard made a really good idea by doing this. They really know what to do because I think a lot of players are complaining like there's nothing to do in the beginning of the game. I'm just making workers, whatever. Now people are jumping in, make one worker, and then you're already making buildings for your next push. Meanwhile, the builds have already been differed. Mystery went for Nexus first on a big 4-player map, so I think this was a great choice by Mystery, whereas Jim went for the standard 1 gate into Nexus build.
Yeah, this is a pretty big map here, and the faster expansion will be rewarded. It seems because the opponent is clearly not cheesing, as we can see right now.
Yeah, so Mystery is definitely taking a crucial advantage here with that faster base. And meanwhile, Jim will have a little bit of faster tech, and he's making that early adept. So we're going to see how Mystery is going to deal with this early adept. Remember, adepts do 2-shot probes. But we're going to see how well it does. Again, I don't understand. Every game we've seen the Pros try to go mass adept, it hasn't worked yet. And I really don't think that mass adept is a good unit composition. I think I don't know what kind of damages they do, but it just doesn't seem to be working out, and people have not been really adapting, no pun intended, to the builds. Yeah.
Oh, come on. I thought you were going for the pun. I was totally sitting there in anticipation. Come on, he's going to say adapting. He's going to say it.
No. I am not a pun master like you, good sir.
Oh, come on. Give in to the dark side.
Oh, man. Hey.
I mean, do you think Adept, as it's like walking across the map though, and its shadow moves faster than he does, that he's like, man, this is really unfair?
Yeah, it's like when you try to run around with your shadow when you're a little kid. Oh, and the stalkers might actually be able to pick out that adept in the middle of the map. We're going to see the stalker walks by it. I don't think it saw it in the vision of field. And the 2 stalkers are actually pushing out right now. Those are his only defenses, but here comes the Mothership Core. Going to be able to pick up at this adept a tiny bit, but the adept is going to rush into the main base. The stalker, there is one stalker out. He went away from the adept. I think the adept's going to get a few of these probe kills. Oh, but it's already low health. The probes come out to kill the adept, and the adept does not get a single probe kill. Great micro by Mystery.
Wow. That was some great reaction timing there. Good pull with the probes. And I can't believe that worked out the way it did.
And look at Mystery here pushing across the map with 2 of these stalkers. A wasted energy use on the pylon overcharge here. The stalkers are actually just staying out of range. The other stalker from Jim is at low health right now, and he's just picking up the probes. 3 pros have gone down. This is a great harassment by Mystery, and the adept doing absolutely nothing means that Mystery could go on the offensive, but there are 2 Corsairs out finally.
Yeah, what's the objective of putting that pylon in the mineral line instead of towards the nexus? Now that we're seeing this, and Jim clearly can't use his pylon for a defensive unit at this time.
I really don't know. And, one thing about Pros is that you need to make every single unit, and every single building placed in a very optimized position. Oh, and he's going to pick up a Stalker as well. Great Michael from Mystery. And another Stalker in red health. This is almost a perfect game right now being played out by Mystery.
Yeah, Mystery's really applying a lot of pressure here. Jim's going to have to hold on. He does have those Phoenixes in place still, and that's going to be enough to chase those Stalkers back. And it looks like he will have secured his natural base for right now. I don't think that there's going to be anything game-ending at this point.
Nothing game ending, but I definitely think that Mystery does have a slight advantage right now going into the mid game. He is going for his traditional Blink Stalker play like he did last game, and I mean, if it's been working, why are you going to change it? Let's keep going Blink. And he's also getting a Forge for that +1 upgrade. Both players actually going for Forge. Meanwhile, Jim is continuously going for those Phoenix play and going to try to get a nice air superiority while building up his ground army, and then try to lift up all the enemy units while his ground army deals all the damage.
I really disagree with this Phoenix play. While the Phoenixes are extremely fast, they can traverse the map. It's just really way too far to go all the way across to the top left to your opponent to do harassment. and they could be caught really far out of position here. They're great at defense here. You're seeing constantly these stalkers are getting picked up, and they are going to get killed off. And wow, way more units getting killed than I'm sure Mystery wanted to lose. But still, we could have another situation where Oracles and Phoenixes are across the map, and DTs come back and backstab.
That's exactly right. And I mean, Mystery does have that Twilight Cancel, so he could throw down a Dark Shrine whenever he wanted to. That Blink is almost done right now, and I'm pretty sure that Mystery is still going to be consistently macroing up those Stalkers ready for Blink. Mystery did manage to pick off one of the Phoenix. I'm not sure how much that's going to matter at this moment because of a pretty big already Phoenix count, but it was a pretty cute micro play to pick off one of the Phoenix that was picking up a Stalker and letting that Stalker come back down and deal more damage.
Yeah, it's one of those things though. Like in StarCraft 1, if you only go for one Stargate in like a PvZ matchup, every Corsair that you lose just sets you that much further behind because it does take a considerable amount of time to build one Phoenix at a time. And so even though he's getting a good mass, he's been doing it over a significant period, and every one he loses is just going to set him pretty far back.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. Losing one of your first like 4 or 5 Corsairs as Puros against Zerg back in Brood War was so crippling to your Corsair fleet because Corsairs do like exponentially more damage as there are more. So if you lose one, you're losing so much of your defenses against anti-air.
Right, and you needed like 2 or 3 if your opponent ever decided that they were just going to switch over and just go for a heavy mutant attack.
Yeah, you just needed some amount out there just in case, so you could start macroing up Corsairs like immediately if they start going mutas, and you wouldn't be completely left out in that kind of air battle in the skies. So losing one Corsair early on means a hell of a difference.
And if you guys are interested about learning more for Brood War, I am casting the Advanced Star League, which is sponsored by Africa TV. It will be played this Thursday. There will be a good round of 32 game with 2 top Terran players and 1 top Protoss player, and then a Zerg, who we can kind of throw away in that matchup. But definitely come and support StarCraft 1 because Africa is also the GSL sponsor, and they need all the viewership they can get, whether it's StarCraft 1 or 2.
Oh man, Jim is trying to pick off some of these air units. Does manage to pick up the Warp Prism. That is pretty huge, especially with these Archons out. I'm pretty sure we're going to see some cute little Archon micro play with the Warp Prism. And does not lose a single Phoenix in attack.
That was very lucky that no Phoenixes were lost. The one thing I do love about the flybys with the Phoenix is that they're almost going to guarantee that anything that's air unit for Mystery is going to get killed off. They just idly fly by the mothership core. Done. It's gonna get killed. They manage to fly by a warp prism. They don't even have to focus fire. They're going to auto attack it as they fly. So it's really good to just do periodic flybys and see what you can pick off.
Yeah, but you have to also make sure that there are no stalkers in the main base, or else you're going to lose everything you have. Meanwhile, here we have a kind of a mid-sized push from Mystery here with some Zealot, Stalker, Archon, and he does have a proxy pile in the middle of the map right now to reinforce his army quite a bit. And these Archons are going to do quite a bit of damage, I think, to these Corsairs if they were to fly by. A nice blink out. Oh, wow, great blink out, actually, forcing him to waste 3 pylon overcharges, and that is a lot of energy that's not going to be put to use.
Yeah, and so basically we've seen several times where these push-ins really force a lot of the pylon overcharges, and like in the Lilbo game, he didn't have that mothership core to help defend anymore, and the overcharges don't last as long, and their range is a lot shorter.
Absolutely. I want to also point out that Mystery is now up 40 supply. This is actually pretty crucial. And he's going to go with a +2 timing attack right here. He's charging in with Archon Charge Lot and Blink Stalkers here, picking up the Mothership Core. Really crucial right now. And he's going to back up. He realizes he already got a decent amount of damage. He's going to let some of the more reinforcing units come in. He's almost maxed out right now, and I think he's going to push back in. This is going to be a big battle here. Charge Lot Archon versus Immortal Archon with some support Phoenixes. Here comes the battle up the ramp.
Yeah, and I believe that these Zealots that are speeding in right now with their charge do additional damage on their initial charge engagement. It used to be +30 during beta, but I believe that got nerfed down. So they actually do incredible amounts of DPS, and that's going to force the GG.
Wow, Jim just GGing before the attack even finishes up. Man, Mystery crushing Jim, absolutely demolishing him.
Could
And
you see how effective those zealots are and the new Heart of our new Legacy of the Void?
they look pretty sweet, man. I'm not sure if that was just a mystery with a huge upgrade advantage and unit count advantage, or it was the Zealots actually doing a decent amount of damage. But regardless, we have Mystery taking out the series 2-0, and he'll be moving up in the rounds for the losers bracket. These are really exciting games today. I'm really glad was able to cast them with you.
Dude, definitely a great way to end the day. Just definitely watching some really good StarCraft. I'm totally pumped about Legacy of the Void. I hate to say that it's gonna make me want to watch quite a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty exciting game. I'm actually quite enjoying it. I really want to get the game soon, maybe during winter break when I'm not too busy with school and everything, but it's looking pretty cool. I'm pretty excited for it, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, so I believe I will be good to go. Wait, tomorrow. Know what? I will not be casting tomorrow.
Okay, I might have to do a solo cast then tomorrow.
Yeah, the reason why I'm not is because the Advanced Star League is so early in the morning. I got to be up at 4. So if I did my cast until midnight, I'd get less than 4 hours of sleep between casting, and then I have to go to work immediately after.
Oh man, yeah, don't cast this. I will try to find maybe a dual cast partner in the meantime, and I will do that there. Anyway, so tomorrow, if for the viewers who will be tuning in tomorrow, we're gonna have, I think, the games between IA Shauna versus Jim Mystery in the losers round for the Archon mode. And Shauna versus Flash in losers round 1 for the 1v1 tournament. And also, I think
Jaedong will definitely be playing someone.
Jaedong, I think, is playing Mystery then tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
I think, is that the matchup that we're going to be seeing?
Yeah, it's gonna be Jaedong versus Mystery, so a ZVP.
So we're gonna see then both of the so we're gonna see that matchup. We're gonna see the Flash Shauna matchup, and then we're gonna see the losers round for the Arcamo. So pretty exciting games tomorrow again. We're gonna see how well the Chinese teams do against each other in Arcamo, which would be pretty fantastic to watch. And we're gonna see Flash versus Shauna in a really classic TVT-esque matchup.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. So you guys tune in for Flash. He's going to cast tomorrow. But thank you for listening. I am BisuDagger. And come and join in on the Advanced Star League if you feel like you want to get nostalgic. Watch a game that's 20 years old.
definitely go check out the Advanced Star League. BisuDagger and Amazing XKCD are going to do a fantastic job later on today for Vant. And yeah, please do tune in for that commentary. It will be fantastic to watch, and it is going to be a really exciting and skill-packed group. So if you guys don't tune in, I don't know what the hell you guys are doing.
Yeah, what the hell?
Anyways, my name is Flash for the win. Again, I am a TL staff person. Please follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/KTFlash96. Also, I'm KTFlash96 on YouTube as well. Try to follow me there. I will be putting out some more coverage on different events. And as for BisuDagger, again, follow him right now. I'm pretty sure he has a YouTube channel as well. And definitely follow him here on Twitch. He's going to be casting Vant on Afrika, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Vance is on Afrika. I've got my own Twitch account. I've got my own Twitter. My YouTube account is Dark Archon of Ire. But you could just YouTube BisuDagger. You'll find stuff.
So yeah, definitely check them out. Definitely tune in to Afrika on Vant. You can find all the information on Team Liquid or Liquipedia for the Vant Star League there. And yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Again, my name is Flash for the win.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.